Chapter 277. Outside Emperor Abyss City, there were still countless human experts who had taken human form. Their Dao hearts were shaken by the attack of Yi Qinghan and Shen Ke, and their bodies were trembling. It was too terrifying. The battle prowess of a great circle marshal revered could definitely tear apart any expert below the 5th stage of the Immortal Gate. Only Thearchs at the 2nd stage of the Immortal Gate could escape with their lives. Boom boom boom. Ka ka ka. The divine sword that Shen Ke had created a deep and wide ravine on the ground. It was so deep that one could not see the bottom. It was at least 100 meters wide. Dust and rocks were shattered into powder, and countless branches extended from the ravine. Shen Ke returned to his original body. His face was pale, and he slapped the ground beside him with his right palm. Instead of retreating, he charged into the air. The gravity chains did not affect him in the slightest. A bloody hole appeared on Yi Qinghan's giant dragon tail. Golden blood spurted out and golden light shone. The origin of metal and the origin of wood flowed and healed the wound. The dragon's body shrank, and the dragon opened its mouth. It took a deep breath, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was sucked dry. Tyrant dragon sky-shattering roar. The giant dragon head broke through the void and charged into the wilderness. Its aura spread in all directions, and all techniques retreated. Its angry roar caused the void and the earth to shatter. It was so deafening that even Thearchs with weaker cultivations would be killed on the spot. Bam bam bam. The force of the roar caused Shen Ke's black hair to flutter. He was forced to retreat, and his eardrums were restless. Shen Ke frowned as he watched the dragon head get closer and closer. The destructive power of its angry roar was getting stronger, and the blood in his body surged. His soul was in a mess, and his divine sense was collapsing. He could not help but bite the tip of his tongue and focus his mind. His palms madly formed complicated seals as he mobilized all his strength. Emperor descends from the heavens. A dignified and ancient voice seemed to cut through the ages. Shen Ke's aura was sacred, and it was as if an emperor had personally arrived. His figure, battle intent, and his entire temperament were rising. It was not to be blasphemed. Just as the move said, if an emperor descended from the heavens, who would dare to fight him? Shen Ke raised his hand slightly and formed a giant hand that covered the sky. It was as if the entire sky was shaking. It was as if an emperor had attacked, and the great Tao had descended. Suppress. Shen Ke's voice carried the will of the heavens. He waved his hand, and he wanted to smash the dragon head. Boom. The giant hand that covered the sky shattering heavens. The dragon's roar did not shatter the giant palm. The two collided violently. The dragon's horn shattered mountains and rivers as it collided with the giant palm. Yi Qinghan's spiritual awareness was almost shattered. He coughed up blood and flew backward. The huge dragon head was thrown into the depths of the untainted land. Boom. Puff. Outside the space, countless young men and mighty figures were sent flying while coughing up blood. Their faces were as pale as paper, and their bodies trembled. They were unable to maintain their Tao hearts. The difference in power between those of the same level was simply too great. Even their hearts of becoming kings were crushed, let alone proving their Tao. Many of the boundary emperors sucked in a breath of cold air. This divine watchtower was too terrifying. They never thought that Yi Qinghan would actually be able to withstand it. Yi Qinghan felt dizzy and returned to his original body. He could no longer maintain his golden dragon body. He stood 1,000 miles away and stared at Shen Ke, his eyes filled with disbelief. This divine ghost sect was indeed a little strange. He had used an emperor-grade secret technique. Although he could only use a 10,000th of its power, it was enough to kill those of the same level countless times. However, against Shen Ke he could only injure both sides. Being suppressed by the two divine gravity chains was not a reason or an excuse. It was just that his understanding of the 9 Heavens Tyrant Dragon technique was not deep enough. If he was in his younger state, he would definitely be able to suppress Shen Ke was also shocked. He had used his strongest battle strength. Although his realm was suppressed, he was still at the same level as Yi Qinghan. Furthermore, he had gained a slight advantage. He had not been able to completely injure Yi Qinghan. Instead, he had been forced back more than 10 steps. Shin-Kei looked at his palm. There was a bloody hole where blood was spurting out. There was actually a destructive aura attached to the wound. The origin of metal had torn the wound, and the dark element had eroded his vitality. There was no way to heal it. I really underestimated you. You have actually comprehended the embryonic form of the great Tao of destruction and have almost completed the 5 elemental Tao body. Perhaps you really do have the qualifications to compete with me for the great Tao throne. Shin-Kei flickered, and killing intent flashed across his eyes. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he thought to himself, there is no hurry. His realm is much lower than mine. I need him to be my stepping stone. Perhaps the 5 elemental Tao body will be my wedding dress. If I can't destroy his soul, he definitely won't be able to survive the primal chaos revival in his current state. It seems like I have to retreat. Shin-Kei's expression was indifferent as he strenuously suppressed the Tao of Destruction's aura. His face was deathly pale as he continuously retreated. He raised his head and said to Yi Qinghan, "Brother Yi is indeed powerful. No wonder you were the first person to complete the human sovereign's mission. You were also able to subdue 2 sovereign bloodlines. Shin-Kei is ashamed of his inferiority, and after 2 attacks, you still have the strength to use a 3rd move. I want to fight with you in the primal chaos revival." Yi Qinghan's fingertips trembled slightly as he stared at Shin Quebec. He did not expect Shin-Kei to admit defeat at the last moment. "Brother Shin, thank you for letting me win." Yi Qinghan squinted his eyes. He could see that Shin-Kei still had strength left, but he did not want to fight anymore. As for what he was thinking, Yi Qinghan did not care. In any case, he would not be friends with him. It was fine if they were strangers, but it would be best if they were not enemies. "I am a member of the Divine Ghost sect. I am really worried about my main body outside, so I will do Brother Yi a favor. I will give you all these life tokens. I will leave now. If you have time, come to the ghost domain. There will be endless opportunities waiting for you there." Shin-Kei threw out his life tokens. There were still more than 80,000 life tokens inside. It was definitely a huge number. Yi Qinghan received the life tokens. He did not think about Shin-Kei's words. Instead, he sat cross-legged on the ground and tried his best to recall Shin-Kei's ultimate Emperor origin returning and Emperor Heaven descends. He also tried his best to recall Shin-Kei's method of forming seals. Shin-Kei's hand seals were extremely fast, and they were also very complicated and difficult to understand. Yi Qinghan's skill stemmed from his courage, and he wanted to imitate Shin-Kei's hand seals just by looking at it. If Shin-Kei knew about this, he would definitely regret not using his full strength and keeping Yi Qinghan in the boundless space. The God Martial Emperor code in the depths of his soul suddenly flipped pages and slowed down Yi Qinghan's memories by millions of times. Shin-Kei's hand seals seemed to be in slow motion, making Yi Qinghan overjoyed. Although there were only 2 moves, they were definitely the most terrifying secret techniques. Especially the Emperor Heaven descends. Just its aura alone could suppress the Imperial Sons and Saintesses. In the 50th battle zone, the parrot flapped its little wings and looked around, trying to find more treasures. However, there were no treasures in this space other than the Emperor task. This godforsaken place. This divine bird must have been possessed to come here. The parrot's face was full of regret. If the Qilin tiger knew about this, he would definitely rush in and strangle it. How do I get out of this space? This human emperor's mission has nothing to do with me. It's all useless stuff, and it's all for that bastard. This time, I must get something good from him. Otherwise, don't even think about taking away the heaven-flipping palm imprint and the mid-tier 8th grade Azure Dragon Blood Essence. The parrot's black eyes flashed as it walked around and prepared to go to Area 51. "It's over there. Stop it." There were more than 10 experts. 5 of them were Imperial Sons, while the rest were all quasi-emperor level. Those who could survive the Qilin tiger's attack were definitely experts among experts. They were extremely fast and surrounded the parrot in an instant. The parrot was shocked. It looked at the crowd innocently and asked in confusion, "Heroes, what are you doing? I don't even have a life jade on me. If you don't believe me, you can search for it." You said the Chilean tiger had the emperor inheritance reward, right? You killed us with a borrowed knife and injured us severely without any benefits. How dare you trick me? A top human expert from a superpower shouted at the parrot coldly. This is the first time I've been fooled, and I was fooled by a bird. Today I will skin you alive. Everyone rubbed their fists and palms together. They all wanted to torture the parrot. The parrot swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Seeing so many people in such a sorry state and still alive, it guessed that the Chilean tiger had been eliminated. Heroes and heroes, please calm down and don't be impatient. Actually, I know that Area 51 really has the Emperor Inheritance reward. You all know that I am a devouring spirit eagle. I am very sensitive to treasures. I only need to sniff the entire area to know if there are any treasures. Believe me, this time, we'll arrive at Area 51 after crossing the area. Follow me and you'll know. The human emperor's inheritance, the reward of the 9 dragons emperor, and the reward of human emperor Shenyuan. Just thinking about it makes me excited. The parrot's saliva flew everywhere. It was afraid that people wouldn't believe it. Since it couldn't escape, it simply flew back to the ground and curled up with its wings around its head. It looked extremely wretched. Look at me, poor me. I don't have any battle strength. So many of you are surrounding me. How could I dare to trick you? The parrot begged. The parrot wanted to cry, but no tears came out. It was extremely vexed. Why did it come back here? It didn't come up with its soul, but with its body. Others could escape by throwing out their life jade, but what could it throw out? Nonsense. You didn't even enter Area 51. How do you know there is the Emperor Inheritance reward there? The experts of the myriad races roared. They wanted nothing more than to slap the parrot to pieces. I went in, but there were experts there. There were quite a few who were as strong as you. I didn't dare to go in, so I retreated, the parrot said. Seeing that the parrot was still trying to trick them, the crowd couldn't help but close in. They transformed into immortal sect Dao soldiers and laughed wildly as the parrot shivered. This is the first time I've heard of someone who entered Area 51 and returned to Area 50. You have a reputation as a lowly bird. Do you think we'll be fools to believe you? The experts of the human race scolded. You don't believe me? I didn't have a life jade, but I still went from Area 49 to Area 50. How hard could it be to go from Area 51 to Area 50? The parrot smiled bitterly and pretended to sigh. Actually, the people of the insane sect and the Chilean tiger clan have a great enmity. You all know that. I was forced to use you. I really want to make it up to you. I want to use the Emperor Inheritance reward to make up for your losses. My master is not with me, and I have no battle strength. Don't you think I have to rely on you to save my life? How could I harm you? The crowd was skeptical. The parrot was really strange. It didn't need a life jade to go back and forth. It was possible that it could come back. Area 51 is really a treasure. I'm a godly spirit-devouring eagle. Believe me, whoever crosses with me, I'll help you find the treasure. But you have to guarantee my safety. The parrot promised. Hearing this, the crowd immediately became vigilant. They were afraid that someone would suddenly attack them and steal their life jade. They wanted to cross with the parrot and fight for the Emperor Inheritance reward. The parrot rolled its eyes and kept retreating. However, it didn't dare to escape. It was afraid that these people wouldn't fight. It said loudly, "The Emperor Inheritance reward. The Imperial Son wants to prove his Tao. Without the Emperor Inheritance reward, how can he prove his Tao? The opportunity is right in front of you. It's up to you." Chapter 278. In the 50th Battle Zone, more than a dozen experts from the human race and the 10,000 races were looking for trouble with the parrot. However, after being fooled by the parrot, the hostility between them was very strong. The human race and the 10,000 races were about the same in terms of numbers, but the human race had one more prince than the 10,000 races, so they had an advantage in terms of combat strength. The parrot's eyes flashed, and it immediately shouted, "Brothers of the human race, the crazy sect belongs to the human race after all. I am loyal and devoted to the human race. Of course, I hope that the reward of the Emperor in the 51st Battle Zone belongs to the human race. If you join forces to kill them, the life tokens may be enough for you to cross the zone together. When the 3 princes and the 5 quasi-emperors of the human race heard this, their eyes lit up. They looked at each other and said in a low voice, "Kill." Boom. Boosh. More than a dozen experts suddenly erupted and charged at each other. Their eyes were red, and they did not care that they were teammates anymore. They fought until the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Sword rainbows were like lightning, darting around in the void. After all, the human race had one more prince. That prince almost wiped out the quasi-emperors. He attacked continuously, severely injuring several quasi-emperors on the spot. Those quasi-emperors' faces were pale, and they did not dare to waste any more time. They directly threw out their life tokens and fled. The human race prince did not care about collecting his life tokens. He joined forces with the chief disciple of another super force again and pounced on the quasi-emperors. The 2 of them joined forces and the 10,000 races retreated. Brothers of the human race, do your best. I am with you. The parrot roared, and its body kept moving to the side. Its eyes were fixed on these people. It wanted to leave, but it was afraid that they would react and crush it again. It could only wait anxiously. The sudden infighting in the 51st battle zone shocked the quasi-emperors outside. Soon, 6 quasi-emperors in the battle zone were eliminated. 5 quasi-emperors from the 10,000 races and 1 from the human race. Aren't they teaming up? Why are they suddenly fighting again? Everyone muttered to themselves. They did not understand but felt that it was awesome. This group of idiots must have been used by that bitch bird again. Idiots. They are all idiots. The Chilean tiger roared, wanting to kill again. Everyone looked at the Chilean tiger with disdain. It scolded others as idiots, but it was also tricked out. Although everyone was unhappy with the Chilean tiger, they did not dare to say it out loud. They could only mock it in their hearts. Yi Qinghan was in the 49th battle zone. The little man in his sea of consciousness kept practicing the extreme king's return to origin and king's heaven's descent. Gradually, it looked like it had the power to attack. However, King's Heaven's Descent still felt like it lacked the presence of a king. Yi Qinghan lowered his eyebrows as he pondered. He closed his eyes and tried to recall Shin Kei's hand seals again. He played them in slow motion and finally realized that there was a problem. When Shin Kei attacked, his soul would draw on Heaven's might. The illusory figure behind him seemed to be formed by Heaven's might. Heaven's might was the might of an emperor, and it was enough to suppress all life in the world. Emperor's Descent. The tiny figure went deep into the chaos and formed a seal with both hands. The heavenly might in the void was vast and mighty. The chaos poured down and gathered into an indomitable phantom that stood behind the tiny figure. The tiny figure raised his hand slightly and the phantom did the same. He mobilized the heavenly might and shouted in a low voice, "Suppress!" Boom boom boom. Wah wah wah. The sky was shaken until it collapsed. It was as if an emperor had descended with the sky, suppressing the stars and piercing through the sun and moon. Its aura was overflowing. In the depths of the chaos, the stars exploded and the sun and moon lost their color. The tiny figure stood proudly as if the emperor had descended. In the boundless space, Yi Qinghan opened his eyes. A radiance broke through time and space and scanned the universe. It was as if he had seen through space and entered the boundless universe. That gaze was soul-stirring. The Chilean tiger stared at the 49th battle zone and clenched his fists. His eyes were filled with killing intent. "Bastard! You've improved so quickly. A year ago, you were still a bug that I could casually crush. A year later, you can actually stand shoulder to shoulder with an ordinary prince. If I give you another half a year, won't you climb above my head?" Yi Qinghan's improvement made the quasi-emperors exclaim in admiration. However, they did not know that he had secretly learned Shin Kei's special skill. At this moment, he only had the appearance of it. After a few actual battles, he would definitely not be inferior to Shin Kei's power. In addition, he had the divine martial imperial codex to copy it. Perhaps he would be able to explode with even greater battle prowess. Boom! Yi Qinghan crossed the battle zones again. From the 45th battle zone, he crossed several battle zones and finally stepped into the 49th battle zone. However, there was no one left in the 49th battle zone. Once again he stepped into the 50th battle zone. The 50th battle zone was dyed in blood. Dark clouds rolled in the vast sky. The experts of the 10,000 races roared in anger. They were not willing to be eliminated. However, the humans were gaining more and more advantages. Finally, the arch-level expert was eliminated. A human the arch was severely injured and had no choice but to withdraw from the trial. The number of people on both sides was decreasing. There were only 2 thearchs left in the human race. There was only one left in the 10,000 races who was still struggling bitterly. He looked ferocious and was not willing to withdraw. "Don't force me. Otherwise, we will all have to withdraw from the trial." The silver wolf the arch growled. His green eyes were soul-stirring. He revealed his true form and arched his body. His sharp claws shattered the ground. He was ready to attack at any time. The 2 thearchs of the human race were panting. They had used all their trump cards, but they could only fight with the silver wolf the arch until both sides were severely injured. At this time, most of the people had been eliminated. The corner of the parrot's mouth twitched. There were still 3 of them. Who knew if there were any Emperor missions in the 51st region? What if there weren't? Anyway, it had not entered the 51st region yet. It definitely could not follow the 3 of them in. If there were no missions, the 3 of them would definitely be beaten up. 2 against 1, and you don't even have the confidence to win. What's the point of proving your Tao? Even if there are Emperor rewards ahead, you won't be able to get them. The parrot scolded angrily. It was as if it expected better from them. The 2 thearchs of the human race looked at each other. They gritted their teeth and decided to charge at the silver wolf. Kill. Swish, swish, swish. More than 10 sword lights shattered the void and surrounded the silver wolf. Roared, the silver wolf was extremely fast. Its sharp claws pierced through the void. It used the space laws to travel through an alternate space and disappeared in front of the thearchs. The parrot was shocked. If the thearchs knew the space laws, it would be bad. The 2 thearchs of the human race were definitely not a match for the silver wolf. Run! The parrot landed on the ground and dodged their gazes. It began to escape into the distance. Boom! The silver wolf broke through the void and appeared in front of the 2 thearchs. Its fangs pierced through everything and bit at the throat of one of them. It was as fast as lightning. Save me. Poochie! The thearchs of the human race stabbed at the silver wolf's chest. However, the silver wolf did not dodge at all. It allowed the sword to pierce through its chest and bit off the thearch's throat. In an instant, the thearchs of the human race was on the verge of death. They threw away their life cards and prepared to leave the trial. The silver wolf did not stop them. It only wanted to injure both sides. If it could not get the Emperor rewards, the 2 thearchs of the human race would not get it either. Therefore, it allowed blood to spurt out of its wound and its soul to wither. It turned around and pounced at the 2 thearchs. They've all gone crazy. The thearchs of the human race grinned coldly. If both sides were injured, as long as he killed the silver wolf and obtained all the life cards, he would definitely be ranked in the top 100 of the life cards. That kind of reward was enough to make any thearchs go crazy. A half-dead silver wolf dares to fight with me. The thearchs of the human race laughed. His sword flashed and he shouted, "Water origin appear. Drain its blood." The bloody hole in the silver wolf's chest shot up into the sky. Its chi and blood did not listen to its instructions and began to spurt out. Its soul instantly collapsed. The silver wolf roared and used all its strength to tear the void apart and travel through the alternate space. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The thearchs of the human race desperately shattered the space around him. He did not want to be ambushed by the silver wolf. His eyes were filled with ferocity and excitement. As long as he could stall for time, the silver wolf would definitely lose. Everyone in the 50th battle zone would be trampled under his feet. The parrot turned around and saw everything clearly. Not only did it give up on escaping, but it also approached the battlefield. Hee, I wonder what this life card is for. When I get the life card of this battle zone, I might be able to exchange it for some 7th grade sacred medicine or something. A shrill cry resounded through the mountains and rivers. The silver wolf thearchs of the human race was covered in blood. It charged out of the void and its sharp claws pierced into the thearchs of the human race's back, almost tearing his soul apart. The thearchs of the human race roared and stabbed his sword back. It pierced through the silver wolf's waist and into its left chest, almost piercing its soul. Go to hell! The human and the wolf fought wildly. Both of them were injured and their blood stained the ground. They could die on the spot at any time. At the last moment, neither of them was willing to give up. Whoever lasted until the end would be able to cross over and search for the emperor's reward with the parrot. Unfortunately, they were too naive. The parrot was wearing the immortal sex robe. It was as fast as lightning and directly pounced on the battlefield. Watch my sky-burning fire. Burn. Whoosh! The parrot took a deep breath and spat out flames that were not inferior to the 6 true flames. Everything that touched it would be set ablaze. The 2 thearchs of the human race were full of vitality. As soon as they touched it, they were ignited. Even their souls could not escape. The thearchs of the human race and the silver wolf screamed. Their shrill cries shattered the void. Their souls were set ablaze. The pain was absolutely unbearable. Whoosh! 2 life tokens were thrown out. The silver wolf and the thearchs of the human race fled frantically, trying to extinguish the flames on their souls. However, in a breath's time, 1/3 of their souls were burned away. Their souls were almost set ablaze. The silver wolf and the thearchs of the human race almost went crazy. They rolled on the ground. It took 2 breaths of time for the soul to leave the space. However, these 2 breaths of time were longer than 10,000 years. The parrot's eyes shone brightly. It wanted to pounce on the green wolf and kill it completely. However, the space barrier between the 50th and 49th battle zones shone brightly. Lightning split the space and time. A figure crossed the mountains and rivers. Gravity chains that were 50 meters long wrapped around the strong cultivator's ankles like a divine dragon. Boom! It was Yi Qinghan. As soon as he entered the 50th battle zone, his soul was sublimated and he instantly broke through the immortal gate. There was no need to suppress it anymore. First layer of the immortal gate. Although it was only a small increase in cultivation level, it was a fundamental change. Only by entering the immortal gate could one enter the ranks of the strong. Otherwise, the thearchs of the great martial honored realm would not even be interested in them. Yi Qinghan's aura rose and rushed into the clouds. He was like a god of war descending. His aura suppressed the 50th battle zone. Fuck, this bastard has become so strong. The parrot muttered. Suddenly, it became serious and raised its head to squawk. It flattered, "Hey master, I got you a lot of life tokens. Come and pick them up." Chapter 279. Yi Qinghan's aura changed. He looked at the parrot and almost fell from the sky. This guy didn't even participate in the competition. How did it get into the boundless space? Whoosh! Yi Qinghan used the law of space and rushed to the center of the battlefield. He saw the silver wolf and the human prince's souls gradually disappear into the boundless space. There were still flames on their bodies. He couldn't help but look at the parrot in surprise. Could this guy kill 2 princes in one go? Obviously not. The silver wolf and the human prince's eyes were filled with unwillingness. They wanted to tear the parrot into pieces. In the end, they were eliminated in humiliation. "Master, look, I've collected all the life cards in the battle zone. I knew you would come, so I took care of these little bastards. You don't have to work so hard. Take them." The parrot said flatteringly, pointing at the life cards scattered on the ground. Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and looked coldly at the blood and the countless life cards on the ground. 100,000 life cards, plus the Qilin Tiger's 70,000, were all here. Then he waved his hand and took them all. There were now 300,000 life cards. The person in front of him was only 30,000 life cards away from him. "Did you kill all of them?" Yi Qinghan obviously didn't believe the parrot. He couldn't help but ask in a deep voice. "Of course. Once this divine bird's divine body trembles, how can these little fellows be my match?" The parrot raised its head and said proudly. It was so thick-skinned that it didn't even remember the scene where it hugged its head with its wings and begged for mercy. Did you trick the Qilin tiger out? Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and asked. Ahem, I used a little trick. The Qilin tiger was just SOSO. As soon as it entered the 50th battle zone, it didn't even have time to breathe before it was kicked out, the parrot said arrogantly. Yi Qinghan sneered. This parrot was too deceitful. If he didn't sign a contract with it, he wouldn't feel at ease keeping it by his side. Otherwise, he would be grateful if he was killed by it. Asterisk crack. Asterisk Yi Qinghan clenched his fists, and his iron bones cracked. He looked down at the parrot and asked in a low voice, Tell me, were you the one who completed the second task? The parrot's expression changed. It had wanted to use the heaven-turning palm seal and the 8th grade Azure Dragon's blood essence to exchange for some treasures. But now, it was giving them to Yi Qinghan so cheaply. That's not it. The parrot's eyes flickered with a crafty gleam as it vetoed the idea. Really? Yi Qinghan stretched out his hand and grabbed the parrot in the palm of his hand. He discovered that the parrot's body had come in, and not its soul. He couldn't help but feel a surge of emotions in his heart. This weirdo really couldn't be calculated using common sense. That's... The parrot shivered as it looked at Yi Qinghan's deep eyes, which seemed to radiate a terrifying will. It shook its head and said, No, I really did get it. Master, why are you so smart? I wanted to give you a nice surprise. The parrot's expression instantly took a 180-degree turn. It said in a wretched manner, Master, do you know what I got? Take a guess, I guarantee that you'll smile from ear to ear. Cut the crap. Give it to me. Yi Qinghan glared at the parrot. The first human emperor's reward was enough to move anyone. The second human emperor's reward obviously wouldn't be any worse. How boring. Alright, here you go. This is a drop of Azure Dragon blood essence of the middle 8th grade. There is also the great heaven overturning palm imprint created by human Emperor Xinyuan when he was young. Is it 7th grade or 8th grade? I forgot. The parrot hurriedly threw out 2 items and said in a flattering manner, Master, I know that this heaven-turning palm seal is an important secret technique for you to prove your Tao. The Qilin tiger chased me through the war zone, but I didn't give it to him. I wanted to keep it even if I had to die. If I give it to you, then I can die in peace. I'm loyal and devoted, and my body is full of courage. I fought with my own body. The parrot chattered on, its eyes red. If it were anyone else, they would have been moved to death. Yi Qinghan's lips curled up. He accepted the heaven-turning palm seal and the 8th grade Azure Dragon's blood essence. He looked down at the parrot, not wanting to expose it. What do you want? Just tell me. Once we're out of the war zone, I'll give you double. Ah, Master, you're the best to me. Actually, I don't have much appetite. Just give me a dozen 8th grade saint pills and divine pills. Really, I don't want too many. The parrot sat on Yi Qinghan's hand, rubbing its 2 little claws together as it looked at Yi Qinghan with anticipation. Yi Qinghan curled his lips. A dozen 8th grade saint pills and divine pills? Was he trying to empty the ancient killing god's pockets? This was called having a big appetite. He really wanted to ask the parrot what it was like when it had a big appetite. I'll do my best. Once we're out of the endless space, I'll look for materials and refine divine pills that are suitable for you. I'll try my best to help you evolve into a 8th grade spirit-devouring godly hawk as soon as possible. Yi Qinghan said, Master is mighty. How about I take you to the human sovereign's mission? Our life cards are enough for you to destroy 6 war zones. The parrot said excitedly, You can sense the rewards of the human sovereign's mission? Yi Qinghan was curious. This bird was a bit too terrifying. Of course, all the treasures in the world can't escape my eyes. The parrot said proudly. As long as it entered a war zone, it could sense if there were any treasures worth lingering over. Let's go to War Zone 51. The parrot ran onto Yi Qinghan's shoulder and valiantly rushed toward War Zone 51. As soon as he entered the immortal gate, the 5 gravity god chains couldn't restrain Yi Qinghan. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Boom, boom, boom. The earth rumbled. Yi Qinghan was like an ancient killing god. He reached out and broke through the barrier, entering War Zone 51. War Zone 51 had already been broken up. There weren't many people who could win. They were gathered together to discuss how to deal with the people who crossed over. When they saw Yi Qinghan imprisoned by 6 chains, their hair stood on end. They didn't know whether to be sad or happy. To be able to cross over 6 war zones, he was definitely not an ordinary powerhouse. Yi Qinghan's lips curled up. He shouted in a low voice, "Emperor's descent." The aura of War Zone 51 changed greatly. It was like an emperor had descended, overlooking all living things and destroying everything. Boom, boom, boom. A giant hand covered the sky and cut off half the sky. It suppressed the earth and swooped down on everyone. The void collapsed and the earth bobbed up and down. A few powerhouses didn't even have time to escape before they were suppressed. Yi Qinghan put away his life card and stepped toward the center. Emperor's descent was extremely fast, but it ended even faster. Before anyone could change their eyes, Yi Qinghan had finished the battle. However, Heaven Dominator kept staring at Yi Qinghan and found something wrong. He said in a low voice, "This little guy actually secretly learned the 6 Disasters Azure Dragon's special skill. What a terrifying talent. He only saw someone use it once. He actually learned 50% of his battle strength. If he's allowed to cultivate for a few more days, he might not be any weaker than the Divine Ghost Sect's disciples." There were also people who saw Yi Qinghan's posture when he finished. They couldn't help but frown and ask, "What move did Yi Qinghan use just now? I didn't see it." It ended too quickly. Everyone looked at each other. Now, Xia Ziluo had crossed 45 battle zones and rushed to the 51st battle zone. She and Yi Qinghan looked at each other across space. Yi Qinghan looked at the hundreds of meters of iron chains behind Xia Ziluo and couldn't help but be surprised. This little girl had changed too much. The wordless stone tablet had actually allowed her to grow to this level. However, this couldn't be entirely attributed to the heaven quelling technique. Her battle strength was already comparable to Emperor Ye's. After learning the heaven quelling technique, she had become a strong candidate for the throne. Qilin Tiger was kicked out by you? Xia Ziluo was valiant and valiant. Her voluptuous figure showed that she was still a peerless beauty. The iron chains on her ankles didn't affect her movements at all. When she saw Yi Qinghan, the first thing she asked was Qilin Tiger. This was very important to a woman like her who didn't admit defeat. She could lose to anyone but not Emperor Yi or Jian Qinshue. Yi Qinghan shook his head slightly. Before he could say anything, the parrot raised its head and said proudly, "It was this divine bird who threw him out. He's just a piece of trash. Why do I need Master's help?" Xia Ziluo clenched her fists and looked at the parrot coldly. A mocking smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Qilin Tiger had the bloodline of a 9th-tier immortal sect emperor. Not to mention the parrot, even Yi Qinghan might not be its opponent now. The parrot was obviously fooling her when it said that it had kicked Qilin Tiger out. It was indeed done by it. It met Qilin Tiger in the 49th battle zone. I only met the parrot in the 50th battle zone. Yi Qinghan explained in a low voice. Xia Ziluo's mouth twitched. It turned out that she had lost to the parrot. This bitch bird really ruined her plan. Otherwise, she would see how Emperor Yi could be arrogant in front of her after she had killed Qilin Tiger. "Ha, you've all lost. Master is mine. None of you can take him away." "Ha." The parrot lay on Yi Qinghan's shoulder and laughed evilly. Its voice spread far and wide. Yi Qinghan and Xia Ziluo both staggered and almost fell to the ground. "Scram. If you dare to talk nonsense again, I'll slap you to death." Yi Qinghan was slightly angry. This bastard was definitely rubbing it in. Xia Ziluo clenched her fists. She really wanted to punch the parrot and let it have a taste of being beaten. Ahem, I was just joking. Don't take it seriously. Little princess, don't be angry. Look at you. You're peerless and dignified. You don't lose to any man. I can tell at a glance that you're going to prove your Tao. Don't be so calculative with me. Humph, watch your mouth. Otherwise, I won't let you have a chance to speak. Xia Ziluo snorted coldly and stepped towards Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan didn't move at all. His green robes billowed as he stared at Xia Ziluo. He whispered to himself, could it be that her life jade isn't enough to go to the 52nd battle zone and she wants to fight me? Don't worry. My life jade is enough for me to become the king of 100 battles. Xia Ziluo looked at Yi Qinghan coldly and arrogantly. It's not like I'll only marry you. If that little girl fights with me again, I guarantee that you'll belong to me. No one else can share you. Xia Ziluo was too strong. She was confident that she could prove her Tao. No man in the world was worthy of her. However, she had the right to be arrogant. The parrot's mouth twitched. It really wanted to retort, but after thinking it over, it didn't dare to. Otherwise, this woman in front of it would really shut it up. Yi Qinghan's lips curled up, revealing a faint smile. His eyes gave off a trace of intent as he said in a low voice, I'll marry whoever I want. No one can stop me, not even you. Chapter 280. In the 53rd zone, the two great masters were facing each other. Really? Get the king of 100 battles first. My man is destined to be the king of 100 battles. If he can't even get the king of 100 battles, what's the point of boasting? Xia Ziluo said disdainfully. Yi Qinghan smiled. The king of 100 battles was almost out of life cards now. Even if they flattened the previous zones, they might not reach the king of 100 battles zone. His goal was the human sovereign reward. There were still 8 unclaimed rewards. As long as he got half of them, it didn't matter whether he was the king of 100 battles or not. Even the king of 100 battles might not get as many life cards as he did. Let's try our best. Yi Qinghan was indifferent. He turned and walked toward the 52nd zone. The 52nd zone was also flattened. There were only 3 masters left, and they still had 50,000 life cards. They were in a deadlock, and no one was willing to give up. Unexpectedly, 2 people who crossed zones appeared at the same time. Yi Qinghan crossed 7 zones, and Xia Ziluo crossed 47 zones. The 3 masters' hair stood on end. Without hesitation, they threw out their life cards and left the battlefield. With a stretch of his hand, Yi Qinghan took them away. Xia Ziluo didn't make a move. She had conquered more than 20 zones, and she had more than 1,000,000 life cards. Overall, she was in the top 3. No matter how many life cards she had, it was useless. In the end, she would have to fight in the king of 100 battles zone. Boom, 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 the 2 of them walked together into the 53rd zone. The parrot's eyes flashed and it whispered, there's treasure. It must be the human sovereign reward. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. He followed the parrot's instructions and walked toward a deep mountain. Xia Ziluo's eyes flashed. She knew that the parrot and Yi Qinghan wouldn't do anything without benefits. The only thing that could tempt them was the human sovereign reward. Thinking of this, the corners of her mouth rose slightly. Who wouldn't be tempted by the human sovereign reward? Boom! The iron chain shattered the mountain. Xia Ziluo followed behind. Her eyes were blurred, and her fingertips moved slightly. She was ready to fight for the human sovereign reward at any time. Yi Qinghan didn't stop her, and he couldn't stop her. If he fought with Xia Ziluo now, even if he gave it his all, it would probably end in a lose-lose situation. He might even be slightly weaker. In the depths of the mountain range, there was a valley that was isolated by a great formation. Inside the valley hung a terrifying yellow map, depicting a dark river that stretched for thousands of miles straight to hell. There were several boats on the river which were exactly the same as the boats that Yi Qinghan had seen on the Dead Star. However, these Yin soldiers were even more powerful and lifelike, as if they wanted to kill their way out of the seal and into the human world. Just his aura alone was enough to crush an expert of the immortal sections. Those with weak Tao hearts would be scared to death. The Yellow Springs Hell's Map was an emperor weapon from the ancient times, personally forged by the Yellow Springs Emperor. Once the Hell's Map was activated, it could suppress evil and kill those of the same cultivation realm. Once it was activated, it would not be any weaker than a perfect boundary emperor. In fact, it might even be stronger than a great perfection boundary emperor. It was as if the great emperor himself had arrived. The Hell's Map had been sealed by the 9 dragons divine emperor and human emperor Xianyuan. Unless the great emperor himself came, no one could activate it. The Hell's Map could not activate itself. At this moment, its aura was restrained, and the mountain range was blocked. No one could discover it. An emperor weapon had quietly stayed here for hundreds of thousands of years, waiting for a fated person. Yi Qinghan used stellar transposition and shattered the void, appearing above the valley. His large hand shattered the Great Formation. This Great Formation was only a formation that isolated the aura of the Hell's map. It was useless and anyone could break it. Boom! The formation shattered, and Yi Qinghan reached out to grab the Hell's map. Xia Ziluo quickly crushed the sky, distorting time and space, wanting to stop Yi Qinghan. Emperor descends. Yi Qinghan's aura rose, and his terrifying aura overflowed. He attacked with all his strength, and the large hand that covered the sky shattered the distorted void, once again grabbing at the Hell's map. Humph, too late. This thing is mine. Xia Ziluo used form displacement transposition and appeared beside the Hell's map. Her jade-like hand grasped a corner, and she was about to take the Hell's map away. However, she did not expect Yi Qinghan to be even faster, and he directly grabbed the center of the Hell's map. The two of them exerted their strength at the same time. The Hell's map emitted an eerie and terrifying aura. The ghost ship wanted to break through the confinement of time and space and descend here. The corrosive power suppressed their souls. Even if the Hell's map did not activate, it was not something that two immortal realm juniors could control. Even an invincible king could not. However, neither of them let go. Both of them wanted to control the Hell's map. Their auras burst forth and rushed into the clouds. Let go, and I'll give you the supreme treasure. Don't force me to attack. Xia Ziluo shouted in a low voice. If you let go, the Hell's map will be mine, and the supreme treasure rewarded by the human emperor will be yours. Yi Qinghan did not back down. The emperor weapon was not like anything else. No amount of supreme treasure could exchange for it. You already have the human emperor's sword. What else do you want? Xia Ziluo glared at Yi Qinghan. His big round eyes were like lanterns. There was no murderous intent, but the destructive power was not small. The human emperor's sword has its own will. It has awakened and will not listen to my orders at all. But the Hell's map is different. It is a supreme treasure with unparalleled offensive power. It is enough to help me prove my Tao. Yi Qinghan curled his lips. The two of them stared at each other, feeling uncomfortable all over. It was as if they were fighting over candy with a little girl. I was the one who found this supreme treasure. The parrot said weakly. You shut up. The two of them spoke at the same time. How could they let the parrot control the Hell's map? Yi Qinghan would not agree. Damn, you two are really like family. Do you want to get rid of me after I've outlived my usefulness? I'll break up with you too. I'll take the next supreme treasure myself. The parrot was furious. It obviously also wanted the Hell's map. With this item, it could run amok in the world. If anyone dared to stop it, it would immediately take out the Hell's map and send them to hell. The two of them glared fiercely at the parrot, but neither of them let go. The Hell's map was torn out of shape, and the Emperor's might was gradually activated. Yi Qinghan hurriedly moved closer to Xia Ziluo. Xia Ziluo was also worried about activating the Hell's map, so she also moved closer to Yi Qinghan. The two of them just happened to bump into each other. The two of them trembled. Xia Ziluo felt as if she had been blasphemed. Her jade-like hands grasped the sky, directly grabbing Yi Qinghan's neck. Yi Qinghan's hair stood on end. This girl could even distort space. If she grabbed his neck, even if he himself was here, she could still break his neck. He immediately pointed at Xia Ziluo's waist, and a surge of true essence rushed out, roaming through her limbs and bones. Xia Ziluo clearly hadn't expected Yi Qinghan to use this move. Her entire body almost went limp, and her eyes widened. Although she was completely powerless, her left hand clenched the Hell's map tightly, unwilling to let go. Her right hand was raised above her head, controlled by Yi Qinghan's large hand. She couldn't exert the slightest bit of strength. Their eyes met. Holy shit, this idiot is enlightened. The parrot was speechless. Looking at this strange posture, it couldn't help but grin. No wonder you used this move. It turns out you can't stop her weak little hand. Yi Qinghan's eyes widened as he stared at Xia Ziluo. In his heart, he wanted to kill the parrot 100 times, 100 times. This bastard actually dared to say that Xia Ziluo's little hand was weak and powerless. It could even crush the sky, let alone his own neck. If it was grabbed, even his soul wouldn't be able to escape. Xia Ziluo had never experienced this scene before. Her little hand had never been grabbed by anyone before. Now that her waist was touched and she was attacked by Zhen Yuan, she was immediately stunned and at a loss. Yi Qinghan also didn't dare to move. At this time, Xia Ziluo was already on the verge of exploding with rage. If he moved, it would cause her to crazily counterattack. This woman couldn't be killed. After all, Xia Qiwei was her brother. Xia Chentian also treated him well. If he killed her, he wouldn't be able to explain himself. If he wanted to kill her now, it would be the best opportunity. Once the two of them separated, Xia Ziluo would definitely be able to chase Yi Qinghan around the battle zone. After a long time, Xia Ziluo calmed down. Her eyes darted around. Seeing that Yi Qinghan didn't dare to move, she raised her right foot and fiercely stomped on Yi Qinghan's foot. Boom! With a loud boom, the ground cracked and the valley split into two. It was clear how much strength Xia Ziluo had used. This wasn't a battle of the body. Yi Qinghan's foot was also derived from his soul. This stomp was equivalent to stomping on his soul. Yi Qinghan felt the pain and let go of his hands. His figure flew backwards, his face twitching ferociously. He clenched his iron fists and resisted the urge to cry out. However, the twitching of his soul told Xia Ziluo that Yi Qinghan was definitely in heart-wrenching pain. Xia Ziluo put away the Netherworld Hell's map. She wiped her lips and angrily glared at Yi Qinghan. Her whole body trembled and she clenched her fists again. She angrily berated, "I completely misjudged you. You actually did such a despicable thing to a little girl." The corner of Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. He slowly adapted to the piercing pain in his soul. He wished he could slap Xia Ziluo out of the space. She was completely taking advantage of him, and yet she was still pretending to be innocent. "I discovered this Netherworld Hell's map first. You snatched it first, so I can do whatever I want," Yi Qinghan said angrily. "Treasures belong to those who are fated to obtain them. I obtained it, which means I'm fated to have it." Xia Ziluo glared at him unreasonably. Fine. You're fated to have it. Since you obtained the Netherworld Hell's map, then tell me, how do you want to make it up to me? What treasure will you use to make it up to me? I don't want anything lower than a 7th grade medicinal pill," Yi Qinghan said coldly. "You touched me, so we're even. There's no need to make it up to me," Xia Ziluo said, raising her head. "Fuck, a touch is worth tens of thousands of gold. Are you trying to scam me?" The parrot roared. It had discovered it on its own, so how could it not get any compensation? "I've never been touched by anyone else." Xia Ziluo immediately stretched her neck and shouted. "My master hasn't touched anyone else either," the parrot said hysterically. When it came to saint-level medicinal pills, there was no room for negotiation. Crack! Xia Ziluo clenched her fists and glared at the parrot. "What? You want to fight?" The parrot shrank back and shook its head, not daring to argue. Yi Qinghan, whoosh, 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 divine splendor covered the sky and earth as it descended upon the 53rd battle zone. The Xianyuan sword appeared again, its divine nature radiating in all directions. Its majesty was vast and mighty, shocking the 53rd battle zone. Congratulations on completing the 3rd Human Sovereign mission and obtaining the Netherworld Hell's map. Although it's been suppressed, it's still a quasi-emperor weapon. When you pass the tribulation and prove your Tao, it'll awaken and become a true emperor weapon to help you prove your Tao. The Xianyuan sword looked down at Xia Ziluo as if it were alive. Xia Ziluo bowed respectfully. She was no longer pestering endlessly like a little woman. "The mission reward is the Xianyuan 13 sword styles, which I created when I was young. It's invincible, and no one at the same level can resist the 9th sword. The sword manual contains my will, and it's enough to make anyone reborn and become an almighty swordsman." After the Xianyuan sword finished speaking, it threw out a palm-sized brocade box from its internal space. Xia Ziluo put it away, and then the Xianyuan sword disappeared without a trace, as if it had never appeared. Xia Ziluo's eyes shone brightly. She grinned and said, "Brother Yi, you don't seem to be a swordsman, but a blade cultivator. The Xinyuan 13 sword styles are useless against you, right?" Chapter 281. Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows. Hearing Xia Ziluo's sweet voice and the first time she called him Big Brother Yi, he knew she was up to no good. Sure enough, Xia Ziluo smiled a little embarrassedly and said, "My brother and you are friends. Can I give something you don't need to my brother? He cultivates the way of the sword. You won't refuse, right?" The parrot trembled with anger. The promised compensation was gone, and now she wanted to steal the 13 sword styles of Xinyuan. This was intolerable. Yi Qinghan was speechless. Xia Qiue was still a friend after all. If he rejected her, it would be obvious that they were going to separate. "I have no objections to letting Brother Xia cultivate it, but there are 2 sword experts in my sect. I hope." Yi Qinghan stared and said in a low voice, "No problem. Let's comprehend it together. We will definitely comprehend it together. I won't take advantage of others." Xia Ziluo promised. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes. He realized that whoever came into contact with the parrot would have a face that was harder to break than an extreme emperor weapon. The parrot almost knelt down. How was this taking advantage of others? She was digging up their ancestors' graves. "Master, we can't go with her. That woman looks valiant, peerless and beautiful. But in reality, she's still a woman. We can't offend or provoke someone like her. Let her go first." The parrot was dispirited. It had finally found the reward of the 3rd human emperor's mission, but it was snatched away by someone else. It was furious, but there was nothing it could do about Xia Ziluo. Yi Qinghan also nodded. He also felt that going with Xia Ziluo was definitely not a good thing. The human emperor's reward was the absolute truth. So what if it was the king of 100 battles? It was best to walk on one's own path. "Sister Ziluo, look, you have to go for the underworld diagram and the 13 sword styles of Xinyuan. You should go first. I don't want to be the king of 100 battles, so I can't go with you. Besides, I don't have enough life tablets, so I will drag you down," Yi Qinghan said earnestly. "You are my brother's friend, so you are my brother. How can I not take care of you? I'll give you some of my life medallions. Follow me and I'll protect you." Xia Ziluo looked at the parrot, her eyes glittering as she spoke in a righteous tone. Yi Qinghan and the parrot were speechless. Yi Qinghan said in all seriousness, "Actually, my talent isn't that great. It's impossible for me to prove my Tao. If I keep walking, I might just drop out of the training. I don't want to be a burden to you. You should leave first." Xia Ziluo pursed her lips and thought to herself, "His talent isn't good? Only a ghost would believe that if I followed him, I would steal his good fortune. This spirit-devouring godly hawk is a treasure for seeking treasures. If I follow him, I'll be able to find the human emperor, and the reward won't be any worse than the one the warlord of 100 battles would get. Today, I'll follow him. I can't leave. It doesn't matter. I'll follow you wherever you go. If you drop out, you can still give me these hundreds of thousands of life medallions. Maybe I can become the number 1 in the battle zone. Don't you think so?" Xia Ziluo pretended not to know. The 2 of them looked as if they were old friends who had just reunited, reluctant to part. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and stared at Xia Ziluo. Seeing her fearless expression, as if she was sure to win, he didn't want to waste any more time with her. He turned around and left directly. With the 2 of them working together, even Qitian Monkey King and Long Qiangyang would have to give way to them. There were no peerless masters in the 53rd zone, so they pushed all the way to the 54th zone. Behind them, Jian Chenxue rampaged all the way from the 1st zone to the 50th zone. When he found that there was no one in these zones, he began to speed up and kept approaching Yi Qinghan and Xia Ziluo. Finally, in the 55th zone, the 3 of them gathered. Sparks flashed, and the 2 beauties were about to fight. Jian Chenxue's white robe was fluttering, pure and holy. Wherever she went, snow would fall and freeze people's hearts. Even if there was no murderous intent, Yi Qinghan felt cold all over when he got close to her. Even his soul's combat power was decreasing. Brother Qinghan, long time no see. Jian Chenxue pursed her lips and smiled. She couldn't help but lower her head. Her jade-like fingers tore the corner of her robe. Even if she had attained Tao, she wouldn't be strong in front of Yi Qinghan. That kind of submission was deeply ingrained in her. Yi Qinghan smiled slightly. He always felt guilty towards Jian Chenxue. She had always been by his side, but he didn't cultivate her. The hidden scarlet snow body was also not something he could discover. If it wasn't for the sudden eruption, she might have been following Kuang Zong silently and contributing for free. Jian Chenxue's hardships to reach this step were no less than Yi Qinghan's. Especially the blood-washing technique. That kind of pain was not something an ordinary person could bear, let alone a weak girl. Well, Chenxue, you've worked hard. Do you have enough life tablets? Yi Qinghan asked gently with a hoarse voice. It's okay. These zones have been wiped out by you. There's no one in the zone, so I can cross zones at will. Jian Chenxue raised her head slightly. The man couldn't resist her heavenly voice. Xia Ziluo curled her lips and was extremely angry. She found that Yi Qinghan was guarded against her and even competed with her for the treasure. If Jian Chenxue was in the same zone as him, he would probably give the netherworld hell map to her. Thinking of this, she became even angrier and felt uncomfortable. TSK, TSK, TSK. What a delicate little beauty. You really like weak girls. Xia Ziluo's jealousy soared. She looked at Jian Chenxue with disdain and her eyes were full of fighting spirit. That's right. My master likes soft and weak women. Women should be thin-skinned and weak. Your skin is so thick and your strength is so tyrannical. Which man would dare to want you? The parrot ridiculed lazily. You're courting death. Xia Ziluo scolded coldly. Look, you're threatening me without saying anything. I'm doing this for your own good. Otherwise, in the future, if your future husband talks back, will you punch him down and then point at him and say, you're courting death? The parrot curled its lips and mocked. Xia Ziluo clenched her fists. She was a little short of breath and her breasts were undulating. Jian Chenxue pursed her lips and smiled. She didn't hide it at all. Yi Qinghan imagined that scene and couldn't help but laugh. The haze of the netherworld hell map being stolen was swept away. When Xia Ziluo saw that the two of them were mocking her, she immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. She looked at the two of them coldly and sneered. I'd like to see how much you can sacrifice for each other. Xia Ziluo soared into the sky and swept her way. She forcefully defeated everyone in the battle zone and took all the life cards. Aren't you two in love? I don't think you two have enough life cards. How are you going to cross the battle zones side by side? Maybe you two will fight to prove your Tao. Xia Ziluo laughed proudly as she defeated 10 battle zones in a row. She guessed right. Yi Qinghan only had enough life cards to enter the 55th battle zone, while Jian Chenxue only had 500,000 life cards. Jian Chenxue had crossed more than 50 battle zones and had used up all her life cards. If she wanted to enter the 56th battle zone, she had to kick Yi Qinghan out. When women were jealous, there was really no reason to explain. However, Yi Qinghan and Jian Chenxue didn't think of this. Otherwise, they wouldn't have allowed Xia Ziluo to do this. However, in the 45th battle zone, Yi Qinghan had already completed the 10 War Kings mission and the extension mission of the Human Sovereign mission. Sure enough, when the Xian Yuan sword appeared for the 4th time, the divine light shrouded Yi Qinghan. It gave him the secret technique of the origin of fire, the prairie fire technique. When he mastered it, he could burn a region with a wave of his hand. After obtaining the prairie fire technique, Yi Qinghan found that there was no one left in the 55th battle zone. Everyone had been eliminated by Xia Ziluo. If they wanted to cross over, they had to enter the 56th battle zone without a second person. Yi Qinghan frowned. He didn't expect Xia Ziluo to be so mischievous. Brother Qinghan, do you not have enough life cards? Jian Chenxue frowned slightly and asked in a low voice. Yes, do you have enough life cards to cross over? Yi Qinghan nodded and asked. Jian Chenxue smiled bitterly and shook her head. With a total of 500,000 life cards, she had crossed more than 50 battle zones. If she hadn't eliminated all the people in the battle zones, she wouldn't have been able to reach this step. This little girl, how dare she? I was wondering why she left so quickly. It turns out that she wanted me and you to kill each other. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and was a little angry. Forget it, I won't cross over. This life card is yours. You can complete the task of King of 100 Battles. Jian Chenxue handed over her life card without hesitation. Yi Qinghan immediately stopped her. Jian Chenxue was the first to cross over and obtain the inheritance of the human sovereign. If she gave up now, she would be really stupid. Don't give up such a great opportunity. Not everyone has the opportunity to obtain the inheritance of the human sovereign. Even if I take your life card, I don't have a 30% chance of becoming the king of 100 battles. It's best for you to cross over. Take the parrot and get all the rewards of the human sovereign's task. With the rewards of the human sovereign's task, it's equal to my experience. Yi Qinghan immediately said in a deep voice. Brother Qinghan, this? Jian Chenxue was shocked. She had been following Yi Qinghan since she was a child. Naturally, she knew that Yi Qinghan's ambition was to prove his Tao. She did not expect that he would be willing to give up the opportunity to experience for her. A warm current flowed through her heart and her eyes turned red. She wanted to help Yi Qinghan even more. There's no need to say more. I've already obtained 2 rewards of the human sovereign's task and 1 reward of extending the human sovereign. These things are enough for me to comprehend and cultivate for a while. You have to seize this opportunity. If you want to prove your Tao, you can't lose the inheritance of the human sovereign. Don't be willful, Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Divine bird, follow Chenxue and protect her. Help her enter the area of King of 100 Battles. If she is tricked by you, don't come out of the endless space. Yi Qinghan said in a cold voice, don't worry. When you protect Chenxue out of the endless space, I promise to give you a dozen divine elixir pills above the 7th grade. The parrot's eyes suddenly lit up and promised solemnly, don't worry. Even if Long Qiong and Yang Zhan come, I can get them out of here. Yi Qinghan handed over his life card and looked at Jian Chenxue with a smile. His figure gradually disappeared. Jian Chenxue's nose twitched. Thinking of the years when she followed Yi Qinghan silently, she finally moved this stone. Master, remember my divine elixir pills. I'll continue to go deeper. I promise to get you some rewards of the human sovereign's task. The parrot was afraid that Yi Qinghan did not care about it, so it reminded him loudly. Chapter 282. In the endless universe, everyone was shocked when they saw Yi Qinghan, who was ranked 20th, suddenly disappear. Why was Yi Qinghan eliminated? Jian Chenxue was in the same battle zone as him. Did the insane sect kill each other? The 10,000 races were overjoyed. Yi Qinghan was eliminated, which was definitely a pleasant surprise. They were even happier than when some of the stronger emperors were eliminated. This was because Yi Qinghan was always shrouded in fog, and no one could see through him. Miracles continued to happen in his hands. If he continued to stay in the space, who knew how many people would be eliminated? Qin Heng frowned and clenched his fists. He was very dissatisfied. The person chosen by the Guardian Sword was actually eliminated after obtaining 10 Battle Kings. Wasn't this a joke for the 10,000 races? Kacha, Yi Qinghan's body shook and completely merged. His soul was no longer suppressed and became a first-layer immortal. However, his physical body was still at the great martial honorable realm. However, he had 2 drops of Azure Dragon blood essence and a 7th grade fire elemental origin. He could even refine his physical body to the 2nd layer immortal. Yi Qinghan, what happened? Why were you eliminated? Qin Heng asked in a deep voice. We don't have enough life tokens. Between me and Chenxue, one of us will have to be eliminated. She is the first to cross over and has the inheritance of the Renhuang. My withdrawal is the best choice. Yi Qinghan bowed slightly and replied seriously. Zuoxian was stunned and nodded slightly. He was very satisfied that Yi Qinghan was willing to give up on him to help Jian Chenxue. However, he still had some doubts. You could have left your life token behind and waited for the next person to cross over. There is not enough time. I don't have time to waste waiting in the space. Senior, I know what I am doing. Yi Qinghan was impatient. He wanted to return to the killing divine realm and refine his physical body so that his physical body could catch up. Yi Qinghan, hand over your parrot. The Qilin tiger roared. It had been tricked half to death by the parrot and had even wasted its race's only grade 8 life-saving divine pill. Only then had it recovered its strength. The moment it saw Yi Qinghan, it immediately pounced on him. If it weren't for the fact that the quasi-emperors were holding it back, it would have definitely started a fight. The corners of Yi Qinghan's mouth curled up. Thinking about how the Qilin tiger had been tricked by the parrot, he laughed and said mockingly, "Qilin tiger, what the parrot did to you is what I did to you. If you want revenge, come at me. The coronation battle hasn't officially started yet. I'll be waiting for you there." Fuck. Yi Qinghan, hand over that bitch bird. I've been tricked by it. Let it take responsibility. This is the first time I've been played like this. Let the parrot come out. I'll suppress it with one hand. At this moment, the human race, one race, and dozens of experts who had been tricked by the parrot all rushed up and surrounded Yi Qinghan tightly. Their killing intent was overflowing. Yi Qinghan's aura turned cold and a cold light flashed. He scanned the experts with a disdainful smile and killing intent. He said coldly, "I've said it before. If you want to take revenge on the parrot, come at me. I'm alone. If you want to suppress the parrot, say it in front of me." Everyone's aura stagnated. Yi Qinghan's cold gaze made their hair stand on end. They all retreated and faced each other from a distance. A bunch of trash. I can only say that I'm stupid for being used by a bird. Now you dare to clamor in front of me? Revenge? I'll be waiting for you at the coronation battle. After Yi Qinghan finished speaking, he turned around and rushed towards the ancient massacre god. Everyone's killing intent was biting cold as they stared coldly at Yi Qinghan's back. They clenched their iron fists, especially the Qilin tiger. His eyes were ferocious and almost popped out. His hatred for the Guangzong had already condensed to the point of materialization. When Yi Qinghan arrived at the ancient massacre god, he found that most of the ancient massacre god's battle strength had awakened and was gathering. It seemed like there was a special mission. Most of these people were kings of the same realm. Their battle strength was extraordinary, and most of them were above the 5th layer of the Immortal Gate realm. There were at least 50,000 of them, enough to form a powerful army. Yi Qinghan didn't care about this. He returned to the ancient massacre god and took the 7th grade saint pill, the blood creation pill. He directly returned to the massacre god world and touched the barrier, alarming Di Longtian. Di Longtian opened the barrier and saw that it was Yi Qinghan. He was immediately overjoyed and rushed forward, shouting, "Brother, why didn't royal sister come back? Your royal sister is still training. How's your cultivation going?" Yi Qinghan looked at Di Longtian and found that he had changed a lot. He didn't look like a 6-year-old at all, but more like a 10-year-old. He had grown a lot taller, and the divine dragon mark on his body seemed to be alive. It could explode at any time and destroy mountains, rivers, sun, and moon. Yi Qinghan couldn't help nodding slightly. He decided to nurture Di Longtian for a period of time so that he could fight independently. I've cultivated many divine abilities and secret techniques. My cultivation has also reached the great martial saint realm. At most, I'll be able to reach the Immortal Gate realm in half a year, said Di Longtian excitedly. Continue cultivating. When you reach the Immortal Gate realm, I'll take you to the coronation battle. Yi Qinghan patted Di Longtian's shoulder and rushed into the main hall. He sat cross-legged on the ground and took out a drop of 8th grade Azure Dragon blood essence. He put the blood creation pill in his mouth and used his origin to directly tear his body apart and release all the blood. The origin of wood was the last thread of life. The entire main hall was dyed red by the blood essence. Yi Qinghan's body was shriveled and lifeless. He then swallowed the 8th grade Azure Dragon blood essence into his stomach and drove the blood creation pill to his limbs and bones. The blood creation system in his body recovered. The Azure Dragon arm erupted and spread throughout his body. His entire body shone with a golden light. Kacha, Yi Qinghan's golden bones crackled and his body cracked. The blood in his veins was all of the 8th grade azure dragon blood. 1 drop became 10 drops, 10 drops became 100 drops, and finally, it became a river that contained hundreds of rivers. It surged and roared in his body. Boom, 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 there was more and more blood. His body used the azure dragon arm as a base and crazily expanded outwards. Large golden scales grew on his arm and then spread to his chest, neck, abdomen, lower limbs. Time passed as fast as a sword. Yi Qinghan's body was covered in blood. His body was not strong enough to withstand the 8th grade azure dragon blood essence. Even the origin of metal could not stop the dragon blood from tearing his body. Yi Qinghan's soul had crossed 10 districts in the space and was abnormally strong. That was why he could withstand such intense pain. Otherwise, he would have fainted long ago. At this moment, his sweat and flesh were intertwined. He was bathed in a river of blood. His face was ferocious and his fingers dug into his flesh. His eyes were shining with a terrifying light that could scare people to death. The blood creation pill was still in effect. The dragon blood was rich and the dragon's aura was mighty. Blood rushed out of the main hall and alarmed some of the crazy sect disciples. The origin of metal was operating crazily and the wood element was constantly repairing his body. His body was being refined in the tearing and repairing process. He became incomparably strong and quickly rushed to the peak of the Grandmaster realm. His bones broke and grew again. The cycle repeated. He was like a top-grade immortal Gate Dao soldier, indestructible. And in the boundless space, Jian Chenxue was excited. Yi Qinghan had finally responded to her. It meant that he really loved her. Otherwise, he would not give up the battle for her. Thinking of this, she was very angry and dissatisfied with Xia Ziluo. Xia Ziluo, you've made me angry. Don't let me catch up with you. Otherwise, I'll kick you out. Jian Chenxue sped up. The iron chain on her body was more than 600 meters long, which meant that she had crossed more than 60 districts. However, Xia Ziluo's speed was especially fast. She had already started to run towards the King of 100 Battles area. Yang Zhan, Long Qiong, and the others had crossed more than 90 districts and would soon enter the central King of 100 Battles area. The crazy sect had crossed more than 20 districts from the Ninefold Realm. In the end, they met Yang Zhan. Yang Zhan did not kill them but still eliminated them. Lin Aoqiong led Yi Mengxi and crossed more than 70 districts. Gu Qingyu and Lin Wutian joined forces and fought their way to 80 districts. Unfortunately, they did not have enough life tokens. In order to repay their kindness, Lin Wutian threw out his life token. Gu Qingyu did not even have the chance to stop him. Feng Wuxie walked alone in the battle zone. He did not get many life tokens. Every time, he would die in the battle zone before he could cross over. His aura became ethereal, like the wind. He was there but could not be seen clearly. Shirgu had finally triggered a human sovereign mission. Perhaps it was the will of the heavens, or perhaps he was really lucky. He had actually obtained the only boundary emperor weapon in history, the pseudo-extreme Dao brick. Without any suppression, the emperor's aura was imprisoned by the human sovereign. After he obtained it, it completely exploded, shocking countless districts. A pseudo-extreme Dao emperor weapon. It's only half a step away from becoming an extreme Dao emperor weapon. It's Shirgu from the human race who obtained it. It's the crazy sect again. The boundary emperors were shocked. The extreme Dao Bricks Emperor's aura was stronger than any other boundary emperor weapon. However, it was still not at the level of a true extreme Dao emperor weapon. If it was given to a Dao realm cultivator of the human race's holy land to nourish it with the blood of a boundary emperor, it would become a true great emperor weapon in 5,000 years. There were only a few extreme Dao emperor weapons in the world. The human sovereign's guardian sword, the Tianwu Great Emperor's life extreme Dao battle sword in the ancient space. The Zhan family had an extreme Dao battle god spear that came from the ancient man inheritance. Its history was even longer than the guardian sword. Other than these 4 extreme Dao divine weapons, there were no other great emperor weapons in the world. Now that a pseudo-extreme Dao emperor weapon had appeared, it was imaginable that many people were excited. Qin Heng and Zhuxian looked solemn. Gu was from the crazy sect, and the sect leader of the crazy sect had the human sovereign's guardian sword. That meant that he was on the ancient man massacre god's side. Since Gu obtained the pseudo-extreme Dao Emperor weapon, it meant that the ancient man massacre god had obtained the pseudo-extreme Dao Emperor weapon. Obviously, he wouldn't allow others to compete for the extreme Dao brick. While everyone was still in shock, Gu Qingyu disappeared from the boundless space. He wasn't eliminated, but he had disappeared just like when Yi Qinghan disappeared. He had triggered the human sovereign's mission. Gu Qingyu walked alone in the mountains. His soul seemed to be guided by something. He didn't need to look for the mission reward. His soul walked towards the mission location on its own. A lifetime of one sword and one brother, lonely heart and lonely sword. What a pure sword, without any impurities. A voice rang out in Gu Qingyu's sea of consciousness, causing his eyes to pierce through the void, allowing him to see the essence of this boundless space. Everything in front of him was nothing but an illusion. This boundless space didn't exist. There were only two wills that towered above the heavens. The wills of the 9 dragons great emperor and human sovereign Shen Yuan were inside the extreme Dao Emperor weapon, looking down on all living things. Chapter 283. There seemed to be only 3 wills in the endless space: the lonely sword path, the 9 dragons emperor's will, and the human emperor Shen Yuan's will. The cold and lonely will faced the 2 emperors' wills and bowed slightly. Junior Gu Qingyu greets the 2 emperors. You are the sword path. This is one of the best sword path foundations I have ever seen. Pure, without any impurities. You can inherit my legacy. The Shen Yuan sword shook, and the hoarse voice was filled with emperor's might. Human Emperor Shen Yuan had crossed through endless history and arrived at the era of emperor's fall. Congratulations, Shen Yuan. You finally have a successor. Unfortunately, there is no one to inherit my 9 dragons path. The 9 dragons emperors will dimmed. The 9 dragons path involved all the great Dao origin and laws. It was difficult to understand. He had spent his entire life but had not cultivated it to greater completion. Otherwise, immortality would have been easy. Gu Qingyu's body shook. Human Emperor Shen Yuan wanted to take him as a disciple? The divine light of the Shen Yuan sword poured into the world, and a mighty river spread into the endless universe. Gu Qingyu, if you want to become my disciple, you still need to be tested. I have chosen 3 people in the endless space: Lin Aoqiong, Xia Qiyue, and you. I will teach you a set of sword techniques. Whoever uses the shortest amount of time, the purer the sword path, and the stronger the power, I will take that person as my disciple. Whoosh, A will shot out from the Shen Yuan sword and rushed into Gu Qingyu's sea of consciousness. Divine sword path technique, a mid-tier 8th grade martial technique. There are 3 moves in total. The first move, Sword Heart Sky. The second move, 10,000 Swords Reveal Sword Path. The third move, Divine Sword God Slaying. The 3 of you have cultivated the same secret technique. I won't be biased towards any of you. I won't give you any hints. It's all up to you to comprehend. Different people comprehend different sword daos. Use the sword in your hand to tell me that you meet my requirements. Gu Qingyu's soul moved, and he disappeared from the other space and appeared in the endless space. The mental cultivation method of the divine sword path technique appeared in his sea of consciousness, and the 3 sword moves were incomparably sharp. At the same time, Xia Qiyue and Lin Aoqiong also received the divine sword path technique. Their auras were monstrous, and they wanted to kill their way through the clouds, destroy all enemies, and achieve glory. In an era, only one great monarch could be born. The heavenly Tao was heartless, and so were the great monarchs. If one wanted to prove their Tao, their heart must be free of all distracting thoughts. Only one of the 3 could be chosen. The battle was bound to be brutal. Everyone wanted to get the inheritance of human Emperor Shen Yuan. This was no ordinary inheritance. It might be even more terrifying than the inheritance of a great emperor. Since the ancient times, there were no more than 5 mortal kings. Many of them could be crowned as emperors, but not many dared to call themselves mortal kings and were called mortal kings. Gu Qingyu, Xia Qiyue, and Lin Aoqiong had all disappeared after obtaining the godly sword Dao skills. They didn't fight immediately, but chose to hide and cultivate the godly sword Dao skills. No one knew if they would become the king of 100 battles after coming out of seclusion and kill the imperial princes. And Yi Qinghan did not know that their competition had reached its climax. He continued to cultivate his corporeal body in peace. Now that his corporeal body had broken through to the peak of the first tier of the Immortal Gate, even the Immortal Gate Dao weapon could not break through his most basic defense. Once the dragon blood boiled and dragon scales appeared, the Crown Prince would not be able to break through his defense even with the Immortal Gate Dao weapon. Goo goo goo, boiling dragon blood flowed out from the Azure Dragon arm and gathered in his body. His blood vessels expanded and could break through his corporeal body at any time. His corporeal body still had room for improvement. Yi Qinghan was calm. He clenched his iron fist and blue veins popped out all over his body. His corporeal body was broken again. The origin of metal, wood, and water worked at the same time to restore his corporeal body. He didn't know how long this process lasted. The essence blood in the hall had already dried up. With just the origin of metal and wood, he could no longer refine his corporeal body. Yi Qinghan summoned the 7th grade origin of fire, the 6th true fire, from his Qingkuan ring and opened the brocade box. The brocade box was enveloped by the Emperor's aura ray. The 6th true fire could not burn it. The origin of fire was almost transparent. But once the brocade box was opened, the temperature of the entire hall rose as if it was going to burn everything. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. If he could control the 6th true fire, his heavy frenzied saber could be upgraded again. It would become a 7th grade heavy frenzied saber that was not inferior to an ordinary divine martial Dao weapon. Boom! Yi Qinghan's hands gathered a large amount of the origin of metal. They shone with golden light and grabbed at the origin of fire. Even with the protection of the origin of metal, the bone-eroding pain caused Yi Qinghan's face to contort. He roared and rushed out of the hall, shocking everyone. His corporeal body was being burned. His bones were turning soft rapidly. Even the Azure Dragon bone could not withstand the close burning of the 6th true fire. Yi Qinghan's voice changed. It was extremely hoarse as he roared. He endured the incomparable pain and forcefully grasped the origin of fire. He forcefully suppressed it within his body. The origin of fire immediately started to tear his corporeal body apart and ignited his dragon blood. Yi Qinghan was bathed in the nameless transparent fire. The bone-eroding pain that came from his body gave him a splitting headache. The roars that came from the hall made the god-slaying eagle and the other experts' hearts turn cold. Yi Qinghan's willpower was so terrifying. How much pain did he have to endure for him to roar like this? No one could understand Yi Qinghan's pain. His corporeal body was protected by the origin of wood. As the origin of fire tore apart, it repaired itself. This cycle repeated until the origin of fire could no longer tear apart his body. Suppress. Yi Qinghan mobilized the origin of metal in his body, wanting to suppress the origin of fire. He could not allow it to wreak havoc anymore. Otherwise, his soul would not be able to withstand such pain. Hiss hiss hiss, true gold did not fear being refined by fire. But now, the origin of metal had been burned out of shape. Once the fist-sized 7th grade origin of fire erupted, the entire ancient massacre god would be burned into nothingness. His sweat evaporated. His entire body was bathed in a river of blood and a sea of fire. The Azure Dragon blood essence became increasingly condensed. It actually advanced towards the middle of the 8th grade on its own. The Azure Dragon bones became a golden color, just like real dragon bones. Yi Qinghan gritted his teeth so hard that his soul was about to faint. His willpower was firm, and he had no regrets even if he died. In order to advance, in order to become stronger, Yi Qinghan was a madman. No one could stop his willpower. The origin of fire seemed to have its own will and soul. It wanted to kill Yi Qinghan and escape into the heavens. It constantly rushed towards Yi Qinghan's organs. The origin of metal could only suppress its speed, but it could not forcefully suppress it. The 10,000 Buddhas pagoda protecting Yi Qinghan's golden body suddenly erupted, protecting his organs and preserving Yi Qinghan's last hope of survival. Water origin, suppress. Emperor descends from the heavens. Suppress. 9 heavens tyrant dragon art. Combine 3 moves into 1. Suppress for me. Yi Qinghan was like a madman. He used the little person in his sea of consciousness to suppress the origin of fire. If it did not submit, then it would be completely destroyed. Everything had its counter. The origin of metal temporarily sealed the origin of fire, while the origin of water countered the origin of fire. This allowed Yi Qinghan to instantly gain the upper hand and suppress the origin of fire, forcing it to retreat again and again. The little person in his sea of consciousness rushed out of his sea of consciousness and constantly used a terrifying secret technique to attack the origin of fire. It contained the will of a great emperor, the aura of an emperor, and the aura of the heavenly Tao. The origin of all techniques did not dare to disobey. The origin of fire's resistance and tyrannical aura immediately decreased by a lot. Yi Qinghan's entire body turned golden. He contained a Buddha-like nature and was extremely majestic. The calm heart mantra allowed Yi Qinghan to maintain his consciousness. His willpower prevented him from fainting. Once he fainted, the origin of fire would definitely counterattack. At that time, the flames would burn the heavens. Even a boundary emperor might not be able to extinguish the flames. Gradually, the origin of fire became weaker. Yi Qinghan took the opportunity to use a large amount of dark elements to attack the origin of fire. He wanted to use the corrosive nature of the dark elements to weaken the origin of fire's power again. Sure enough, the origin of fire became dim and lightless when it encountered the dark elements. It gradually submitted. Together with the dragon blood, it was completely suppressed and subdued by Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's pupils contracted. The intense pain made him unable to endure any longer. He directly fainted, allowing the origin of his Tao body to strengthen and transform his physical body. The Azure Dragon body was officially formed. The current Yi Qinghan was no longer limited to the Azure Dragon arm. Moreover, its grade was even higher. If he could obtain the true origin of water and earth, his Azure Dragon body would definitely be able to advance to the middle of the 8th grade. The sound in the main hall dissipated. The deathly silence made Di Longtian and the others hesitate. They wanted to go in and take a look, but they were afraid of disturbing Yi Qinghan's cultivation. Master is fine. His soul is extremely stable now. Everyone, please calm down. The god-slaying eagle that had transformed into a burly man was incomparably majestic. He was very tall and sturdy. After several months of bitter cultivation, he had completely transformed. His wife had also brought the god-slaying eagle race to supreme glory. Mu Yu Tianxin and Nangong Qingyue retreated from the stone tablet. The tablet dissipated and the sun-moon yin-yang art was completely comprehended. Nangong Qingyue lost some of the immaturity of a girl and gained some of the charm of a woman. Her aura was faintly discernible and she had become abnormally powerful. Mu Yu Tianxin's eyes were deep like boundless stars. The great Tao of Yang attached itself to his golden body. It was extremely attractive to female cultivators. The two of them leaned against each other. Yin and Yang alternated, connecting the sun and moon. Even if they weren't cultivating, their cultivation was rapidly increasing. The sun-moon yin-yang art was truly terrifying. Unfortunately, the flaw was also fatal. If one cultivated this secret art, they might not have a successor. You all can cultivate in peace. You won't have a chance to temper yourself in the endless space, but you must seize this opportunity in the King Bestowment battle. If you can't seize this opportunity, then you can only go to the eternal battlefield to search for opportunities. Mu Yu Tianxin looked at the many young disciples and said in a low voice, "Martial uncle, why don't you enter the main hall to see Master? I really miss him." Tai Hua was still that foolish child without any signs of growth. No matter how many treasures were given to him, he wouldn't be able to open his Qi Si and become a cultivator. At this moment, he looked up at Mu Yu Tianxin and softly said, "No one knew that Tai Hua was a great emperor, but no one discriminated against him. They treated him like a child and loved him like a younger brother. Mu Yu Tianxian nodded slightly and walked into the main hall. He pushed open the door and looked at the congealed blood essence and the unconscious Yi Qinghan. He couldn't help but frown. What did he do? At this moment, Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness was dark without any light. Even the stars in his sea of consciousness were dim. His sea of consciousness was infinitely expanded. The sea of bitterness was vast and boundless. On the other side of the chaotic world, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Rain poured down on the stars in his sea of consciousness as if they were about to give birth to life. Chapter 284. Yi Qinghan's body exuded boundless vitality, telling Mu Yu Tianxian that he was still alive. The temperature in the hall was still very high. Yi Qinghan's red skin seemed to have been baked by a soldering iron. It was slowly cooling down, becoming so soft that it could be broken with a flick of a finger. However, when one really touched it, one would discover that ordinary immortal sect weapons couldn't even break through a bit of his skin. Mu Yu Tianxian didn't disturb Yi Qinghan. With a flick of his finger, he sent the power of yin and yang into Yi Qinghan's body, taking the initiative to heal his internal injuries. Then he left the hall. With the help of the power of yin and yang, Yi Qinghan's injuries quickly healed. With a slight movement of his finger, his eyes opened. Golden light pierced through the shackles and saw through the origin of all things. His originally handsome face became incomparably vigorous, showing signs of turning into a mortal. When a demon reached the pinnacle, it would become immortal. Russell, Yi Qinghan stood up. His immortal sect robe was covered in blood. With a twist of his finger, Yi Qinghan burned the robe. His entire body was bathed in fire, purifying everything. Then the origin of water descended. After cleansing himself, he changed into a new set of clothes and stepped out of the hall. A gentle breeze blew by. His temperament was captivating. "Big brother, you've come out." Di Longtian was overjoyed. It hadn't been long since they last met, but his battle strength had increased by 30%. Yi Qinghan faintly smiled. Looking at the results of everyone's bitter cultivation, he was very satisfied. He took out the last drop of mid-8th grade Azure Dragon Essence blood and used a large amount of liquid spirit chi to neutralize it. Then he gave it to Di Longtian. "Distribute it. 1 cup per person is enough. Don't be greedy. Otherwise, if your body isn't strong enough, it will easily explode and you will die." The Azure Dragon Essence blood had boundless power. Even if 1 drop was neutralized into a large bucket, it was still enough to benefit everyone endlessly. Di Longtian divided the wine into 1 cup each. Mu Yu Tianxian and Nangong Qingyue each took half a barrel. The remaining half was all swallowed by Di Longtian. Everyone sat down and began to bitterly cultivate their bodies. Their cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. Yi Qinghan took out the prairie fire technique and cultivated bitterly for more than half a month. He was still training in the endless space outside. After thinking for a moment, he took the human emperor's guardian sword and walked into the ancient massacre god. He mobilized a large number of people and began to collect 7th grade and 8th grade saint-level medicinal herbs. Yi Qinghan could not let him down. Otherwise, it would definitely betray him in the future. Its ability to trick people was not small. Although Yi Qinghan had the contract in his hands, he did not dare to underestimate it. Yi Qinghan arrived outside the Imperial Abyss City. Looking at the endless space, he found that there were still many people from the insane sect in the battle zone. Emperor Yi, Xia Ziluo, and Jian Chenxue had all entered the King of 100 Battles battle zone. The 3 supreme beauties were tit for tat, but they did not go too far. After all, there were many experts from the myriad races who had entered the King of 100 Battles battle zone. Gu Qingyu, Xia Qiyue, and Lin Aoqiong came out of seclusion. Their sword auras were like rainbows, and their golden bodies were like divine swords. They could break through the clouds and enter the King of 100 Battles battle zone. In the end, Huang Tian had to withdraw from the King of 100 Battles battle zone because of his realm. Otherwise, he would die in the chaotic battle. Shurgu carried the big brick and swept through everything. Whoever dared to look at him, he directly said, "What are you looking at?" In the end, the imperial prince did not want to confront this hothead and pretended not to hear him. Feng Wuxie was the one with the least number of life jade, but he was still able to enter the King of 100 Battles zone. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect that 5 or 6 people from the insane sect would be able to enter the King of 100 Battles zone. Long Qiong, Yang Zhan, and the others did not know that Yi Qinghan was not the only one who had the battle power of the King of 100 Battles battle zone. Mu Yu, Tianchen, and Nangong Qingyue, who did not participate in the battle, also had the battle power of the King of 100 Battles battle zone. They were not inferior to them. As for Si Wuxie, who did not reach the King of 100 Battles battle zone, he had been taken away by the 9 Dragons Emperor's will. Nangong Xiaobei crossed the 80 battle zones. His realm and battle power were weaker than those of the same realm, so he had no choice but to stop training. However, with this transformation, when he returned to the Killing God realm, there would be terrifying room for improvement. After returning to the Endless Universe, Nangong Xiaobei and Lin Wutian found Yi Qinghan. They did not feel guilty. They had done their best. Yi Qinghan nodded slightly. The souls of these 2 people had broken through the 3rd to 4th layer of the Immortal Gate. As long as their bodies were perfect, they would be invincible in the same realm. They would be unstoppable when they were crowned king. Seniors and fellow Taoists, this ye would like to purchase some 7th or even 8th grade heavenly treasures. Medicinal herbs take priority, followed by blood essence. Is there anyone who would like to sell them? This ye guarantees a fair price. Yi Qinghan's low voice broke the silence as he arrived at the central area. Most of the 7th grade and above treasures were in the hands of the myriad races. Their alchemy skills were not strong. The herbs in their territory were thousands or even tens of thousands of years old. The grade was very high. Even the ancient Killing God did not have these herbs. Some of the stronger races could negotiate with the human race through special means to obtain pills and even cultivate alchemists. However, most of the weaker races did not even have a quasi-emperor. The human race did not care about them at all. They had accumulated 7th grade and 8th grade sacred herbs in their hands and had to sell them to the stronger races at a low price. The Red Pine race, the Snow Fox race, the eyes of countless weak pseudo-emperors lit up. This was an opportunity. In the past, when they wanted to trade 7th grade and 8th grade sacred herbs with the human race, the price was always extremely low. There was not much profit to speak of. If they could negotiate with Yi Qinghan, their race would not need to be bullied and controlled by the stronger races in the future. Fellow Taoist Yi, I have many 7th grade sacred herbs. Are you interested? Fellow Taoist Yi, I also have 8th grade sacred herbs. Cooperate with my Red Pine race. We don't ask for much. Our Snow Fox race is also willing to cooperate with you. Some of the pseudo-emperors and even divine martial experts of the weaker races spoke up. Their eyes flashed as they hoped that Yi Qinghan would take a fancy to the herbs in their race. Yi Qinghan smiled. It seemed that these weak races were not as united as before. They were oppressed by the truly strong races and would easily betray them. Fellow Taoists and seniors, if you want to sell sacred herbs, you might as well come to the city with me. We can sit down and talk. The price can be negotiated. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. The disciples of the arrogant sect lacked 7th grade and 8th grade life-saving pills the most. If they wanted to enter the eternal battlefield, they needed a large number of life-saving pills. Otherwise, it would be a huge loss if even one of them died. If they could cooperate with these weak races, they would definitely have an endless supply of sacred herbs in the later stages. The powerful experts of the 10,000 races frowned. They were somewhat dissatisfied with Yi Qinghan's actions. The 7th grade and 8th grade sacred herbs were monopolized by the true Tao realm holy lands of the human race, the 12 Saint Royal clans, and the royal families of the 10,000 races. Yi Qinghan wanted to forcefully break through the food chain and take a share of the pie. Naturally, he would offend many people. Yi Qinghan did not care. For the sake of the arrogant sect's rise, so what if he offended others? With the guardian sword in hand and the ancient Killing God on his side, the human race would not oppose him. As for the attitude of the 10,000 races, it had nothing to do with him. Yi Qinghan turned and left. At least a dozen experts of the 10,000 races followed him. 80% of them were false emperors and the remaining 20% were divine martial experts. The strongest experts of a race were either false emperors or divine martial experts. From this, one could see their status among the 10,000 races. Standing outside the city walls, Yi Qinghan looked at the many experts of the 10,000 races with excited expressions. They seemed to be looking forward to this transaction. Perhaps he could pull these people over to his side. As long as he was willing to train them, there would be no disloyal disciples. As long as a race existed, they would be recognized by the heavens and earth. If they did not grow into a supreme being, that was because they had no resources, no alchemists, and no top-grade immortal sect Tao soldiers. The strength of those at the same level did not only depend on one's own combat strength, but also martial skills and weapons. These races lacked these things, and Yi Qinghan could create them himself. With a fire source, wood source, and metal source, what weapon could he not create? It was easy to create 7th-grade elixirs, but 8th-grade elixirs were very difficult. Yi Qinghan placed his hands behind his back and said in a low voice, "Everyone, take out your materials. How do you want to trade? Give me a price. If I can agree, I will not hesitate." Swish. The group of people took out countless heavenly treasures. The most inferior materials were 6th-grade elixirs. Young Master Yi, the Red Pine race is willing to provide the materials. As long as you are willing to sell a portion of these elixirs to us at a price lower than the market price, we will be extremely grateful. The Snow Fox race also thinks the same. We hope young Master will agree. We can do the same. As long as young Master Yi is willing to sell, we will pay a little more. The experts were excited. Elixirs of 7th grade and above were monopolized by the powerful races. Even if there were experts who returned to their ancestral roots, they would not be able to achieve supreme glory. They were too lacking in precious elixirs. They were willing to provide the materials for free and only asked for a price lower than the market price. This showed how much they desired the elixirs of 7th grade and above. In fact, they were very short on 6th grade elixirs. Yi Qinghan frowned slightly. He did not expect these races to ask for so little. This was not a trade at all. It was robbery. Is this how the Tao realm Holy Lands and the 12 great sage royal races trade with you? Yi Qinghan asked with a frown. If they trade with us like this, why would we bother to look for you? Everyone smiled bitterly. They did not dare to speak loudly and could only send messages secretly. They are offering 10 times the market price. Some races can't even buy the elixirs. They are not willing to sell. They are suppressing our races. Since we can't afford them, we can only accumulate the materials. We have saved quite a lot over the years. 10 times the market price. That was a terrifying number. Some races could not even afford a 7th grade life-saving elixir even if they tried their best. Yi Qinghan's lips curled up. It turned out that the greedy humans were not the only ones. The 12 great sage royal races and the sovereign race were also oppressing them. Yi Qinghan stared at the crowd and said coldly, "You provide the materials and refine the elixirs. You get 20% and I get 80%. You don't need to pay any additional spirit crystals." Before the races could rejoice, the young experts from the 12 great sage royal races and the sovereign race stepped forward and scolded coldly, "Kid, you have some guts." They are the vassal races of the 12 great sage royal races and the sovereign race. You have no right to trade with them. Boom. Yi Qinghan responded with a kick. Yi Qinghan lifted his foot and kicked the expert who had spoken, sending him flying. Then he reached out and grabbed the neck of one of the sage monarchs, who was in the 5th heaven of the immortal gate. He pressed his hand down and forced the expert to his knees. Then he lifted his foot and stomped down on him. "Who dares to stop us from doing business? Let's see if your fists are hard enough." Yi Qinghan's lips curled up. He glanced at the Saint Royal race and the sovereign race experts and knew that they had come under the Boundary Emperor's orders. He immediately mocked them. Chapter 285. The true experts of the Sage Monarch tribe and the Imperials were in the boundless space. With Yi Qinghan's battle prowess, He could sweep through the universe's younger generation with a wave of his hand. Yi Qinghan, don't be too arrogant. There are some rules you'd better not mess with. The Azure Dragon tribe's young invincible king, Long Can, had crossed the 70 districts. Although he had been eliminated, he was still incomparably strong. Boom! Yi Qinghan's aura erupted, and his grade 8 Azure Dragon bloodline roared. His aura soared to the stars, and he crushed the body of the expert beneath him, causing him to faint on the spot. Boom boom boom, Yi Qinghan's robes fluttered as he took one step at a time. His eyes emitted a dragon light, and his body exuded a terrifying dragon aura. It was very pure. The grade 8 Azure Dragon bloodline had been bestowed by the 9 Dragon Sovereign, so it couldn't be compared to the current Azure Dragon bloodline. Thud thud thud. Long Can's face was pale as he retreated. However, Yi Qinghan's aura grew stronger, and he was forced to kneel on the ground. Boom! The ground cracked as Long Can knelt. The Sage Monarch tribe's bloodline couldn't withstand the might of a high-level dragon. They all knelt, not daring to blaspheme. This was the power of the bloodline. Among the myriad races, the dragon bloodline was a supreme existence. Apart from the Phoenix bloodline, the Black Tortoise bloodline, and the Qilin bloodline, no other race could resist the dragon bloodline. The quasi-emperors were shocked, and they all turned to look at Yi Qinghan. He was like an ancient dragon god, and his aura rose with every step he took. It was incomparably terrifying. Yi Qinghan looked at the 12 Sage Monarch tribe quasi-emperors, the Imperials, and the Azure Dragon tribe quasi-emperors. His eyes ignored the shackles of space, and he didn't show the slightest bit of weakness. He had the human emperor's guardian sword in hand, and if worst came to worst, he could return to the killing god world or go to the human race's ancestral land to ask for the martial emperor's corpse. I want to make a deal with the myriad races. Do you have any objections? If you want to object, then come out and tell me. Don't do anything sneaky behind my back. If I find out that the race I'm dealing with is being persecuted, then don't let me find out. Otherwise, you'll have to stop me from attaining my Tao. Yi Qinghan warned in a cold voice. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This was the first time they had seen an immortal sect expert warning a boundary emperor. Yi Qinghan's arrogance was outrageous. The boundary emperors were dissatisfied. This was a very serious provocation. Moreover, Yi Qinghan had stepped on their interests. Yi Choose, how dare you? Don't think that you can be impudent just because you're a decent genius. If you don't prove your Tao, you're nothing. Monarch tribe quasi-race. Use Emperor. Boom. The 12 divine ancestors were furious. They wanted to take this opportunity to crush Yi Qinghan. Their auras surged into the clouds, and their killing intent soared into the sky. The human cultivator frowned. What right did Yi Qinghan have to speak like this? Candies. Did he get an emperor weapon in the endless space? Yi Qinghan's lips curled up. He formed a seal with his palms and took out the human emperor's guardian sword. The divine martial emperor's codex hung above his head, exuding a terrifying aura. The paladin Buddha pagoda shone brightly, protecting the golden body. Its aura was 10,000 feet high, and the golden body was 10,000 feet high, looking down on all living beings. Doing this was just making enemies for himself. The arrogant sect had no emperor boundary, and Emperor Shang had fallen. If Yi Qinghan didn't do it, who could? Yi Qinghan had already made up his mind. He knew that this attack was inevitable. He had to intimidate the experts of the 10,000 races. If the young elites of the insane sect were killed, Qin Heng and Zhuoxian would not turn against the experts of the 10,000 races. If the ancient massacre god was not strong, he had to be strong. Otherwise, with so many elites, if one died, he would regret it to death. If Di Long Tian, Emperor Yi, or Si Wuxia were assassinated, he would go crazy. Boom. Yi Qinghan stepped into the center and looked down at the myriad races. He said in a low voice, "Since I dared to say it, I have a way to save my life. Do you think I only have these 2 extreme Tao Emperor weapons? If anyone dares to kill my people with their cultivation realm, I will use these extreme Tao Emperor weapons to wipe out your race. If 1 isn't enough, I will use 2. If 2 isn't enough, I will use 3. Let's see which race dares to resist the revival of 3 extreme Tao Emperor weapons. Within 1,000 years, my arrogant sect will have someone to prove his Tao. No one can stop him. The boundary emperors felt a chill down their spines, and they felt a stabbing pain in their souls. Some people shouldn't force me to go crazy. When I go crazy, I'm afraid I can't even control myself. Yi Qinghan stared at the Qilin tiger with murderous intent radiating from him. Then, he said coldly, "Qilin tiger, if you want to fight, I'll fight with you right now. Let's see if I can defeat you without my emperor weapon or boundary emperor weapon." A first-tier immortal gate cultivator challenging a 9th-tier immortal gate cultivator. Even someone with a golden bloodline like Si Wuxia might not dare to do so. However, Yi Qinghan had a 50% chance of suppressing the Qilin tiger. He would tear his body apart and seize his bloodline. The corner of the Qilin tiger's mouth rose, revealing a trace of killing intent. He was worried that he couldn't find a chance to kill Yi Qinghan. He didn't expect that Yi Qinghan would take the initiative to provoke him. He couldn't help but step forward. Alright, now is the time when the endless universe is going through a great tribulation. Don't bother about small benefits. No race can stop Yi Qinghan from purchasing 7th and 8th grade materials. If anyone dares to stop him at this juncture, they will be the enemy of the Azure Dragon. The Azure Dragon Boundary Emperor stomped the ground, and his dragon power erupted. The purity of his dragon power wasn't inferior to Yi Qinghan's dragon power. It intimidated thousands of experts, and even the Boundary Emperors had to give him face. The Qilin tiger frowned. He didn't expect the Boundary Emperor of the Azure Dragon race to speak up for Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's eyes narrowed into slits as he stared at the Azure Dragon Quasi-Emperor. Who would have thought that the Azure Dragon Quasi-Emperor would step forward instead of the human race experts? Was it for his blood essence? Thank you, Azure Dragon Boundary Emperor. You have great foresight. Please warn those rascals not to use their cultivation realms to kill the people of the arrogant sect. Otherwise, the consequences will be severe. Yi Qinghan was still strong. The stronger he was, the more the myriad races and the human race wouldn't dare to act recklessly. Who knew if Yi Qinghan still had extreme Tao Emperor weapons? The number of extreme Tao Emperor weapons in Yi Qinghan's hands was no less than all the Emperor weapons of the human race. In addition to Shiji's pseudo-extreme Tao divine weapon, the arrogant sect's foundation was no weaker than any Tao realm's sacred ground. The awakening of an extreme Tao Emperor weapon could destroy a powerful Tao realm's sacred ground, and even the sage royal tribe. Alright, if any of the younger generation of the arrogant sect dies for no reason, you don't have to do anything. I will do it myself. Azure Dragon Boundary Emperor looked indifferently at the Tiger Qilin clan and the other clans that were targeting the arrogant sect. Yi Qinghan smiled. With Azure Dragon's guarantee, the arrogant sect couldn't sit back and relax. However, it was enough to deter some rascals. As for the Tiger Qilin clan and the 4 great divine beast clans, they couldn't care less. With Azure Dragon's intervention, more forces from the myriad races chose to trade with Yi Qinghan. As the saying goes, the law can't punish the majority. With more clans taking the lead, a large number of elixirs above level 6 appeared in front of Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan kept the Emperor's sword and the divine martial imperial codex and returned to the city wall indifferently. He told them the rules of the trade, which made the experts of the myriad races excited. They took out their treasures and elixirs. Lin Wutian and Huang Tian helped to record them. Yi Qinghan took all of them. In half a morning he had collected tens of thousands of level 6 elixirs and hundreds of level 7 elixirs. It was enough to forge tens of thousands of supreme elixirs and more than 100 level 7 elixirs. Yi Qinghan looked at the many fake emperors and experts of the divine martial realm in the complete divine martial realm. He nodded slightly and said, "Everyone, please be patient. Half a month later, you can come to the Hunter Hall. I will give you all the elixirs." Everyone was overjoyed. They weren't afraid that Yi Qinghan would go back on his word. With the ancient massacre god behind him and the arrogant sect having so many invincible experts, they couldn't afford to lose face. Yi Qinghan kept all the elixirs and stepped forward. He looked at the endless space. There were more than 30 people who had entered the battle zone of the King of 100 Battles. They were waiting for the wills of Emperor Xianyuan and Venerable Nine Dragons to descend. However, with so many people gathered, the wills of the emperors didn't appear at all. It was as if they were waiting for something. Now, in the entire endless space, the top 40 experts of the life tablets, except for Si Wuxia, have all arrived. Could it be that they are waiting for that human brat? Long Qiong and other super experts frowned. They didn't want to waste time in the battle zone of the King of 100 Battles. Their battle intent soared as they scanned the human experts. Emperor Ye's clothes fluttered in the wind. He and Yang Zhan stood at the front. His black hair danced in the wind. His eyes were wide open, deep and boundless. A cool breeze blew by, shaking the zither strings and releasing a murderous melody that intimidated everyone. Lin Aoqiong and Gu Qingyu guarded Emperor Yi from both sides. Their sword qi pierced through the clouds. Their cold swordsmanship was emotionless, but humans had emotions. Emperor Yi was Yi Qinghan's lifeblood. She couldn't let anything happen to anyone but herself. Xia Qiuyue and Xia Ziluo stood back to back. At this moment, other than their closest relatives, they couldn't trust anyone. Otherwise, they wouldn't even know what would happen if they were eliminated. Jian Chenxue stepped on the snow dragon. Her white clothes danced with the rhythm of the melody. She floated like an immortal, standing on the dragon's head. She looked incomparably weak, but when she exploded, she could definitely kill a hero and kill the royal bloodline. The parrot stood valiantly on her shoulder, looking at the real king of endless space provocatively. It seemed that she had a life-saving trump card and wasn't afraid at all. Shirgu was leaning on a big rock with a brick in his hand. He was shouting about a spiritual grass that he had picked from an unknown place. His legs were crossed and he looked extremely relaxed. Feng Wuxia stood beside Jian Chenxue. He looked like an ethereal being. If it wasn't for Jian Chenxue, no one would have noticed him. The Kuang sect was too strong. Emperor Yi, Jian Chenxue, Feng Wuxia, Shirgu, Gu Qingyu, Stan Wuxia, Sikong Qingjun, and the rookie were all eliminated. There were at least 10 experts left. If Mu Yu, Tianchen, Nangong Qingyue, Yi Qinghan, and Di Long Tian were counted, the true supreme experts were equivalent to half of the King of 100 Battles. Lin Aoqiong and Tiangong Shen were outsiders of the Kuang sect. At the critical moment, they would definitely side with the Kuang sect. Xia Qiuyue and Xia Ziluo would also stand on the Kuang sect's side. Even if Zhang Ge didn't help, at least he wouldn't attack the Kuang sect. The hero's clothes fluttered, and the sound echoed through the clouds. So boring. Should we kick everyone from the Kuang sect out? Xian Jiutian sneered. Yang Zhan, Zhan Gu, and 5 or 6 Dao realm saints and those with special constitutions raised their eyebrows. If the Kuang sect was kicked out, the human race would be weakened overall. You're courting death. I can kick all of you out with a brick. Shirgu was furious. He sat up, grabbed the brick, and walked forward. How arrogant. I can kick all of you out alone. Long Qiong was indifferent. She looked down at the people from the Kuang sect. Boom. Chitian Monkey King's staff pierced through the King of 100 Battles battle zone. His aura was so strong that no one dared to stand dozens of meters away. Chapter 286. Chitian Monkey King's rod pierced through the King of 100 Battles battle zone. His aura was monstrous, and no one dared to stand within dozens of meters. Xian Jiutian and Feng Ling sneered. The crazy sect's performance had indeed shocked everyone. There were a total of 40 people, and the crazy sect occupied 10. The other human forces occupied 9, and the myriad races occupied 21. If they fought, it would be a problem whether the human race would be left with one. Emperor Ye's jade-like fingers plucked the strings of the guqin, and a towering divine guqin was formed. He stood on top of the guqin, and his clothes fluttered behind him as he looked at the myriad races indifferently. Everyone from the crazy sect gathered beside Emperor Yi, and they drew their swords, unwilling to show weakness. Jian Chenxue took a light step forward, and snow fluttered in the wind, freezing everything within 10,000 miles. Everyone felt a sharp pain in their souls. The snow dragon roared. It was lifelike and stretched for thousands of miles. It was crystal clear as if it was real. Tiangong Shin and Feng Wuxie also stepped forward. Although they kept a certain distance, they were not on guard. This was much stronger than the myriad races. Let's fight. It'll be fun if we fight. The parrot laughed. It was not afraid of the royal bloodline of the myriad races at all. The high-level bloodline did not suppress it at all. Everyone stared at the parrot. This scammer was famous. It definitely did not have good intentions if it wanted everyone to fight. The parrot shrank its head and stopped talking. It was not afraid of one expert. After all, Jian Chenxue was protecting it. With so many experts, it could be drowned in an instant. The King of 100 Battles battle zone was full of murderous intent. These real giants could fight at any time. If the other Dao realm holy lands of the human race did not help the crazy sect, the crazy sect might really be kicked out. Emperor Yi blocked the enlightenment divine lotus in his mind. His eyes shot out destructive light, and a cold aura enveloped everyone. If you join forces, you might be able to kick the crazy sect out. But I can guarantee that your souls will definitely be destroyed, and it won't be as simple as being kicked out. Emperor Yi said coldly. Emperor Ye's will to protect was very strong. The crazy sect was her home, and the suzerain Yi Qinghan was her family. Whoever dared to provoke the crazy sect would be offending him. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Emperor Ye's stare gave them goosebumps, and they quickly distorted space to block the destructive aura. Chitian Monkey King squinted his eyes and stared into Emperor Ye's eyes. He didn't distort space and allowed the light of destruction to taint his Dao body. However, the light of destruction didn't have any effect on him. It was extremely terrifying. It could be seen that he had also comprehended the great Dao of destruction. Xian Jiutian's black tortoise armor was actually able to block the light of destruction. He scoffed at Emperor Ye's battle prowess. With Emperor Ye's defense alone, Xian Jiutian would be able to kill Xian Jiutian as long as he got close. Xia Chiyue's fingertips moved the hilt of her sword. She became one with the sword and stood indomitable. She was about to attack. Zhang Gu held his spear by his side, his fighting spirit soaring. Clearly, he did not want to stand by and do nothing. Yang Zhan looked at Zhang Ji's aura and knew that he would make a move. Naturally, he could not sit by and do nothing. After all, Zhang Gu was Yang Zhan's junior. You want a group battle? Count my Zhan family in. Yang Zhan and Zhang Gu stepped into the battle zone. Their battle intent stacked and they were extremely terrifying. Count my Tianlong's sacred dynasty in as well. Xia Chiyue dragged Xia Ziluo forward. Xia Ziluo was a little reluctant. Yi Qinghan's actions made her too angry. She did not fight with Jian Chenxue and took the initiative to leave the space to train. I, Si Wuxie am in. Boom. The golden blood suppressed the heavens and tore through the void. After a year of training in the space, Si Wuxie's soul had risen to the first layer of the immortal gate. It was the same as Yi Qinghan's realm. Si Wuxie descended like an emperor. He was now a young man with unparalleled vigor. He looked down on the myriad races and looked down on the heroes. However, when he arrived in front of Emperor Yi, he bowed slightly and cupped his fists. Greetings, senior sister. Well, it's good that you're back. Emperor Yi opened his eyes again. The enlightenment divine lotus appeared and the light of destruction dissipated. The people of the Kuang sect had gathered. They were not afraid of the myriad races at all. The emperors still did not appear. It was as if it was looking forward to the battle between the myriad races and the crazy sect. Yi Qinghan looked from afar and clenched his fists. He wanted to go back and kill. I want to go in. Is it possible? Yi Qinghan asked the Azure Dragon Quasi-Emperor. As long as he nodded, he could go back and kill. The Azure Dragon Quasi-Emperor narrowed his eyes and looked at Yi Qinghan. He shook his head and replied faintly, impossible. Everyone can only go in once. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and looked coldly at the King of 100 Battles area. He was a little worried about these little ones. Mu Yu, Tianchen, and himself were not here. It was a little difficult to rely on Emperor Yi, Gu Qingyu, and the others. The parrot was lying on Jian Chenxue's shoulder, shining brightly. It could see that the crazy sect was weak. There were a few people from the hidden families of the human race who were unwilling to fight. It did not want Jian Chenxue to be kicked out. Otherwise, Yi Qinghan would roast it. Suppress the people from the crazy sect later. Don't snatch the treasure. It's my bait. The parrot told Emperor Yi and Jian Chenxue. Whoosh! The parrot took advantage of the chaos and left the crowd. It rushed to the edge and took out a bottle containing a drop of 8th grade Qilin blood essence from its Jiankuan ring. It opened the bottle cap and the Qilin Emperor's bloodline burst out into the sky, alarming the heroes thousands of miles away. Seeing that its goal was achieved, the parrot took away most of the Qilin blood essence, leaving only a little bit. It sealed the bottle cap and left it where it was. It then rushed out of the King of 100 Battles area and took a detour. It did not even dare to fly. It's the Qilin blood essence. It belongs to the Emperor's blood essence. The experts of the myriad races went crazy. Even Long Qiong went crazy. This was equivalent to the divine dragon's blood essence. Whoever got it would be able to soar into the sky. With the supreme royal bloodline, even the likes of Long Qiong and Shen Jiutian could increase their combat power by a level. In an instant, at least a dozen supreme experts of the myriad races pounced on the blood essence. The human race also moved, especially the experts of the hidden aristocratic families. They were extremely powerful and had superb martial skills. They could suppress the invincible king of battle with just a stretch of their hands. They tore the void apart and wanted to fight for the treasure with the experts of the myriad races. Xia Ziluo flew into the sky and distorted space. He wanted to reach out and grab the bottle, but the Chitian Monkey King scattered the space with a strike of his rod. Shirgu relied on the golden brick and pounced on him without hesitation. Emperor Yi and Jian Chenxue did not have time to stop him. The others also wanted to fight for it, but they were stopped by Emperor Yi and Jian Chenxue. Boom boom boom, whoosh whoosh whoosh, true supreme experts of the same level were fighting. They all wanted to give up the qualification of the King of 100 Battles and leave after snatching the Qilin's blood essence. Their combat power soared to the extreme. The King of 100 Battles area was instantly in chaos. There was no longer any distinction between the myriad races. Those who could fight for the Qilin's blood essence would not even recognize their own brothers, let alone those from other races. The void kept collapsing, and the earth was moving up and down. It was extremely terrifying. The Chitian Monkey King's rod smashed onto an invincible king, almost cutting his opponent's soul in half and eliminating him. It was too chaotic at this time. If one was not careful, they would be eliminated. Long Qiong transformed into her true form. Her huge golden body swept towards everyone. Her 5 claws tore through space and grabbed at the bottle. Shen Jiutian relied on the mystic turtle divine armor to ignore everyone's attacks. He defeated an invincible king and stepped towards the bottle of Qilin's blood essence. He did not know that there was less than 1/10 of the blood essence left in the bottle. 90% of it had been taken by the parrot. Even if he used bait, he would not really leave the Qilin's blood essence behind. He couldn't bear to part with it. The human race, a hidden aristocratic family, Zetian, was at the 9th level of the Immortal Gate. His aura had always been restrained, and he did not have many life tablets. However, after becoming the king of 100 battles, no one paid him any attention at all. But he suddenly erupted with power. His Qilin bloodline was about to revert to its ancestral state. Veins bulged all over his body, and his qi and blood suppressed everyone. One of his hands tore through the void and grabbed at the bottle. His eyes emitted a terrifying will. This Qilin blood was too important to him. As long as he had this Qilin blood, he could revert to his ancestral state and prove his Tao would be within reach. All of you get lost. Zetian was dressed in purple. Even his hair was purple. His eyes were vast and mighty, suppressing the heavens. The one who should get lost is you. Long Qiong's dragon tail swung over, shattering the shackles. He swept through everyone alone, incomparably powerful. Heaven destruction technique. Eliminate me. Xia Ziluo seemed to have gone crazy. Her palms reached towards the sky, instantly sucking away all the spiritual qi in the King of 100 Battles battle zone. She waved her large hand in the void, directly grabbing at Long Qiong's vital point, wanting to kick him out. The dragon claw shattered tens of thousands of li, colliding with the heaven destruction technique. The dragon's bones shattered and blood splattered across the sky. Long Qiong roared angrily. She opened her huge dragon mouth and roared into the void, shattering the remaining power. Brother, I'll take it. You take the Qilin blood. Xia Ziluo's power overflowed into the heavens. Her palms formed seals, and the 8 trigrams hung in the sky. She wanted to break open the endless space, seize spiritual qi from the endless universe, and kill countless heroes. Xia Qiue also didn't know that this thing was just an empty bottle with only a little bit of essence blood inside. Otherwise, she wouldn't have gone crazy like this. Her sword pierced through the clouds, and the sword rainbow froze heaven and earth as she attacked Heaven Equal Monkey King. The parrot trembled as it rushed back from the other side. When it saw the heroes fighting together, it had a sinister smile on its face. It asked Jian Chenxue for credit. Hee, mistress, how was it? You released the Qilin blood essence just like that? Jian Chenxue was also very pained. The Qilin blood essence was much richer than the Qilin tiger blood essence. Moreover, it was an 8th grade Qilin tiger blood essence that was almost about to prove its Tao. It was 100 times better than the blood essence that Xia Chintian gambled. Nonsense, how could this divine bird do such a stupid thing? I only put 1/10 of it inside, and I took back 90%. The parrot's face was full of pride. It turned to the people of the Kuang sect and said, let's watch the show first. Later we'll kick them all out. The people of the Kuang sect twitched their mouths and felt incomparably ashamed. They were glad that the parrot didn't side with the myriad races. Otherwise, the human race would definitely be in trouble. With the human emperor's secret technique, people of the same race would be badly beaten up. Little stone, this big idiot, why did he rush in? The parrot raised its eyebrows. It was speechless when it saw Shirgu killing everyone with the brick and hitting Shen Jiutian until he was dizzy. It's good that he rushed in. Now that no one cares about us, let's watch the show. Sikong Qingjun sneered. He held the thunder god rod tightly and stared at the center of the battlefield. When the fight was almost over, it was time to clean up the battlefield. Outside the space, the quasi-emperors were confused. Why was the battle zone of the King of 100 Battles so chaotic when it started? Everyone was fighting for themselves. Except for Shirgu, the others of the Kuang sect didn't move. There must be a conspiracy. It must be the parrot's doing. The Qilin tiger roared. It stared at the image in the space and said its hunch. Chapter 287. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes. The 10,000 races and the human race were in a mess. Other than Shirgu, the rest of the Kuang sect didn't move. It must be the parrot's doing. He didn't need the Qilin tiger to say it. This damn bird. Is it from the 10,000 races or the human race? The quasi-emperors of 10,000 races roared. They wanted to kill the parrot as they watched the king of 100 being eliminated. A few human experts were also eliminated. It wasn't that their battle strength was weak, but that their luck was not enough. In addition to Long Qiong and Yang Zhan, there was also King Qitian, Xia Ziluo, and Zi Tian. Another terrifying figure had emerged from the secluded clans, Yi Feng. He could crush King Qi with his bare hands and trample the sage monarch tribe. Shirgu used the pseudo-extreme emperor weapon to entangle Shen Jiutian. Unfortunately, Shen Jiutian's mystic turtle divine armor couldn't be broken at all. They controlled the battle and occupied the battlefield. Most of the humans and 10,000 races were eliminated, and the remaining ones were injured. Zi Tian went crazy and directly suppressed a top expert of the Saint Royal tribe. He was getting closer and closer to the bottle of Qilin blood essence. His purple robe fluttered in the wind, and his face was ferocious. Anyone who dared to snatch the Qilin blood essence was an enemy to him. Divine might shakes the heavens. Zi Tian formed a seal with his palms, and a huge Qilin phantom followed behind him. It was invincible, and its might shook the sky. 10,000 swords display sword Dao. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, Xia Qiwei unsheathed her sword and turned into 10,000 swords, seizing people's souls. She used the supreme sword Dao, and the sky-piercing divine sword hung in the 9 heavens, wanting to split the central battle zone of the king of 100 battles. Boom! The sword Dao soared into the sky and slashed at a supreme king. The sword momentum was like a rainbow, completely suppressing him and splitting the battle zone into 2. In the battle zone, there was still one person who hadn't participated in the battle. He stood at the edge of the battle zone, coldly watching everyone fight for the Qilin blood. He carried a huge soul-devouring tachi on his back and stood proudly like a javelin. After knowing the parrot for so long, he knew that the parrot was behind it when he saw that there was an extra portion of Qilin blood essence. The number of people in the battle zone was decreasing, but the battle didn't stop. Instead, it entered a white-hot stage. The heaven-quelling technique almost distorted and reversed time and space. The heavenly Monkey King's cudgel stirred up the wind and clouds. He was like a true god of war. There were only 7 or 8 powerful existences left in the war zone. They were all bathed in the river of blood and suffered heavy injuries. Tian grabbed the bottle and rolled it continuously. He did not care about his face at all. However, when he saw that there was only a little bit of essence blood in the bottle, he roared in anger. Who did it? Get the hell out here! Tian's hatred overflowed into the heavens. He used all of his strength and almost died on the spot. He was actually tricked. Everyone stopped what they were doing. When they saw that the blood essence in Zetian's hand was only 1/10 of a drop, their faces turned purple. Xia Ziluo clenched her fists and looked at the parrot. However, she wouldn't tell them that the real blood essence was in the parrot's body. She would wait until they were out of the space to get back all the face she had lost today. The parrot trembled and wanted to get into Jian Qinshue's body. However, without the contract, it could only stay on Jian Qinshue's shoulder. Haha. Sikong Qingjun laughed so hard that his stomach was about to cramp. Qitian Monkey King and the others were livid. After such a fierce fight, there was only a little bit of essence blood. It was useless at all. Only Zetian could use it. Now, if they did not understand what was going on, they would be really stupid. Shige, the hothead of the arrogant sect, rushed up. At this moment he looked at Emperor Yi and the others with a confused face. Xia Jue sheathed her swords and looked at the parrot with the corner of her mouth twitching. No one in the arrogant sect could do such a wicked thing except for the parrot. Give me the essence blood of Qilin. Long Qiong's divine sense locked on the parrot and scolded coldly, "Humph. If you don't die now, I'll kick you out today." Emperor Yi suddenly turned into a guqin and stood in the sky. He pulled the strings and was about to launch the 9 arrows chasing moon explosion technique. Boom! Gu Qingyu and Lin Aoqiong attacked at the same time, trying to eliminate Long Qiong first. Little parrot, give me the Qilin blood. When I become a Taoist, I can help you achieve the 9th rank bloodline. Zetian clenched his iron fist and stepped forward aggressively. Give me the Qilin blood. I'll spare your life. Feng Ling spread her wings and flew high. The phoenix bloodline and the peacock bloodline filled the void, suppressing the heavens. For a moment, some of the people who participated in the battle rushed over. They were the real top cultivators. Although they were all injured, they could definitely inflict serious damage to the arrogant sect if they fought to the death. The parrot had nothing to lose and could not escape. He stretched his neck and shouted, "I'd like to see who's the most arrogant one. Stand in front of me and say, 'Fuck, I'll give you the Qilin blood and let others kill you together.' Who's the most arrogant one? Come out and let me see. You stupid bird that's neither a phoenix nor a peacock. How dare you talk to me like that? Are you tired of living? Believe it or not, I'll use the Qilin blood as a reward to kill you. Even your soul can't escape from the boundless space?" The parrot's neck was thick. He roared at Feng Linger and spread his white wings. He was more arrogant than anyone else. Feng Linger's qi and blood surged. She was almost angered to death by the parrot's words. However, when she saw the cold eyes of everyone, she felt a chill down her spine. If she was surrounded, she would not be able to escape from the boundless space. The King of 100 Battles battle zone was dead silent. Everyone was frightened by the parrot. Do you think we're stupid? We're still killing each other and letting the arrogant sect benefit? Xian Jiutian looked at the parrot with disdain. He was confident in his mystic turtle divine armor and was not afraid of being surrounded. He immediately stepped forward and said arrogantly, "Oh, don't think that I can't do anything to you just because you're wearing a turtle shell." The parrot sneered and said to Zitian and Long Qiong, "Whoever kicks him out, I'll give half a drop of Kylan blood. Whoever can kill him and make him unable to escape from the boundless space, I'll give him a drop of Kylan blood. I swear on the souls of my ancestors that I'll keep my promise to whoever kills him. Give him the Kylan blood." The parrot was enraged. It wanted to establish its might and kick Xian Jiutian out. Xian Jiutian's face was gloomy. He was about to attack Jian Shenxue and kill the parrot. Qitian Monkey King, Zitian, Long Qiong, Yang Zhan, Zhang Ge, Xia Ziluo, Feng Ling, Xia Chiyue, and Shirgu all attacked at the same time. Xian Jiutian was furious. The mystic turtle divine armor was activated and wanted to block the attacks. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. The sky-beheading god staff and the 5-clawed dragon claw tore through the void and were extremely powerful. The heaven-quelling technique directly grabbed the space around Xian Jiutian, making it impossible for him to escape. Boom! Shiji's brick smashed onto the mystic turtle divine armor. The mystic turtle divine armor was activated and let out a deafening rumble. Bang! Qitian Monkey King swept Xian Jiutian's back with his staff and sent him flying hundreds of meters away. Boom boom boom. Hua hua hua. Dozens of attacks in a row stunned Xian Jiutian. He wanted to retaliate, but he didn't know which one to hit. The parrot sneered and cursed, "This divine bird hates people who are arrogant in front of me. Don't think that you won't be eliminated just because you have a turtle shell." Jian Shenxue's mouth twitched. He looked at the parrot and whispered, "Are you really going to hand over the Qilin blood?" "Humph, money can't buy my happiness. Kicking this turtle out is to tell the world that whoever dares to be arrogant in front of me, I'll take out a supreme treasure and put a bounty on his life." The parrot snorted proudly and said smugly. The corners of the Kuang sect's mouth twitched. This parrot was going to overturn the heavens. "We can't let outsiders take advantage of us. Since we're going to attack, let's attack together." Boom! Feng Sha stepped into the battle zone. The Soul Devourer Blade's baleful aura was enough to affect the Tao heart of those at the same level. He slashed at Xian Jiutian. Gu Qingyu attacked. His sword split the sky and pierced towards Xian Jiutian's throat. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 attacks were launched. Xian Jiutian's divine sense was shaken and his 7 apertures were bleeding. Even his physical body was bleeding. Xian Jiutian's defense was indeed the best in the world. More than 10 terrifying existences had attacked him several times. If he was a divine martial expert, his soul would have exploded and he would have died on the spot. However, Xian Jiutian was able to withstand the attacks. At this time, he didn't dare to resist anymore. The mystic turtle divine armor could withstand the attacks, but he couldn't. His soul was about to explode. "Damn you, bitch! Fuck your ancestor!" Xian Jiutian cursed. He wanted to break through the attacks and kill the parrot, but he couldn't. "Go ahead if you can." The parrot was arrogant and didn't care. "You bunch of idiots, you've all been used by it." Boom. Qitian Monkey King smashed his staff again and sent Xian Jiutian flying. Xian Jiutian saw stars and coughed out blood. Zitian held a purple sword in his hand. It was incomparably swift and fierce. His sword was like a rainbow, causing the Tao hearts of the experts to tremble. They wanted to kill Xian Jiutian on the spot and seize the Qilin blood. The Qilin blood was too important to Zitian, so he didn't hold back. Whoosh! Xian Jiutian was scared and threw out his life token. However, his soul still needed time to leave the space. No one wanted to get half a drop of essence blood. They all wanted the whole drop. Boom! More than 10 experts attacked Xian Jiutian's soul together. The space and earth were blasted into nothingness. Xian Jiutian screamed miserably and almost died. The parrot rolled its eyes and asked innocently, "Who kicked this bastard out?" "Of course it was me." Everyone shouted. "Who was it?" "I can't conjure more than 10 drops of essence blood for you." I can only give it to one person. Half a drop. This bastard isn't dead yet. Whoever gets rid of him will get the remaining half. The parrot's eyes flashed and wanted to eliminate a few more people. Everyone clenched their fists. After fighting for so long, everyone had used all their strength. No one could say that it was all the strength of one person. What was the use of sharing half a drop of Qilin blood essence with more than 10 people? I'll compensate you with a supreme treasure. This drop of Qilin blood essence is mine. Otherwise, let's fight to the death after we leave the boundless space. I'm willing to exchange my life for the Qilin blood. Zetian was incomparably domineering. No one could compete with him for the Qilin blood. Everyone looked at him coldly. Such pure Qilin blood essence couldn't be compensated by other supreme treasures. Chapter 288. In the endless universe, outside the Emperor Abyss City, Xianzhutian was kicked out, which shocked everyone. Xianzhutian had the Black Tortoise bloodline of the true sect. He also had the Black Tortoise divine armor, which was enough to withstand the attacks of Qitian Monkey King and Long Qiong. However, no matter how strong the Black Tortoise divine armor was, it couldn't withstand the continuous attacks of more than 10 experts. He was lucky to be able to escape this time. Otherwise, even if Yi Qinghan was attacked like this, with his Origin Dao body and Azure Dragon body, he would have been killed. Xianzhoutian's soul and body merged as he spat out a mouthful of essence blood. His face was pale. Damn you! Devouring Spirit Eagle, I'm going to kill you. Cough cough. Xianzhoutian was furious and kept coughing out blood. His eyes were red as he glared at the King of 100 Battles battle zone. Then he locked his gaze on Yi Qinghan. This parrot was Yi Qinghan's spiritual pet. As the saying goes, the master has to pay for the mistakes of the spiritual pet. Yi Qinghan, just you wait. In the king-conferring battle, I'll kill everyone from the insane sect. Xianzhoutian shouted angrily. Yi Qinghan smirked and clenched his fists. He replied coldly, "Pray you don't meet me first in the king-conferring battle. I'll kill you completely." What big words. More than 10 experts in the endless space couldn't do anything to me. Xianzhoutian sneered. Didn't you get kicked out by a little parrot with a little trick? Yi Qinghan mocked disdainfully. It would have been better if he didn't mention this. When the parrot was mentioned, not only was Xianzhoutian angry, but the Qilin, the experts of the human race, and those who were kicked out were all glaring at Yi Qinghan. They wanted to gang up on Yi Qinghan. Some covered their mouths and snickered. Even the Imperial Prince and the 9th stage Immortal Sect's Imperial bloodline were kicked out. So what if they were kicked out? Many boundary emperors smiled bitterly at the endless space. Not only did the atmosphere in the space not ease, it was filled with killing intent and once again shrouding the King of 100 Battles battle zone. You guys discuss who to give this half drop of essence blood to. If you all agree, I'll give it to you. The parrot said lazily. Zetian and the others were unwilling to give up. The corner of Feng Ling-er's mouth twitched. Looking at the parrot's despicable face, she wanted to explode, but she was afraid that the wretched bird would use the other half of its blood essence to kick her out. She didn't have Xianzhoutian's defense, and she didn't even have a chance to escape when surrounded by so many experts. TSK, none of you are willing to let go. So, let's split it evenly? The parrot asked, taking pleasure in their misfortune. Zetian immediately shouted. He was determined to obtain this drop of Qilin blood. I'll give this half drop of blood essence to whoever recognizes me as their big brother and calls me Big Brother Divine Bird. The parrot's eyes flashed with a crafty light. With so many experts around, if it took in a little brother, who would dare to bully it? The eyes of Qitian Monkey King and the others flashed with cold light. They wanted nothing more than to slap the parrot out of the space. They had the royal bloodline of the myriad races, the top bloodline of the sage monarch race. Who would call a parrot big brother? Shurge held the brick. He wanted to see which one was thicker, the brick or the parrot. Zetian's blood and qi were surging. He was stirring up the Qilin blood essence. His killing intent was overflowing. His purple hair fluttered in the wind. His imposing manner was terrifying as he stared at the parrot. If you don't want to, then forget it. Why are you doing this? The parrot's imposing manner weakened. It did not dare to offend so many experts. I want all of it. Zion's steel teeth were crushed. He clenched his iron fists. He was going all out for the sake of atavism. His handsome face was malevolent as he shouted in a low voice. Zion, do you have any shame? You have the Qilin bloodline of the human race. Now that you are on the path of atavism, why do you have to compromise? Yi Feng rebuked angrily. The corner of Long Qiong's mouth twitched. He could not bring himself to call the parrot Big Brother. Chitian Monkey King coldly snorted. The Qilin blood essence could increase one's combat strength, but it could not evolve his bloodline. Apart from being of vital importance to Zion, it was not that attractive to him. If he could get it, he would fight for it. If he could not get it, he would not go crazy. The parrot looked at Zion's serious expression and was immediately overjoyed. Zion had the Qilin bloodline. Once he officially atavism, his combat strength would definitely rise. It was even possible for him to prove his Tao. With this little brother, who would dare to bully him? Swear. Swear on your ancestors and your Tao heart. Swear in front of the will of the 9 Dragons Emperor and Human Emperor Xianyuan. Not only will I give you the Qilin blood essence, I will also help you prove your Tao. The parrot was impatient. It could not wait to subdue Zion immediately. The corner of Emperor Ye's mouth twitched. Is this bastard parrot trying to run away? I, Zion, have the Qilin bloodline. I swear in front of the will of the 9 Dragons Emperor and Human Emperor Xianyuan. I am willing to swear on the souls of my ancestors and my Tao heart. I will respect the godly spirit devouring eagle as my big brother. Anyone who dares to go against my big brother is going against me, Zion. If I prove my Tao, I will help the godly spirit devouring eagle to attain the 9th grade bloodline and become a royal family. If I go against my oath today, I will be a traitor. My Tao heart will definitely be shattered and I will be spurned by the souls of my ancestors. I will be besieged by all the races in the world and die a tragic death in the Forbidden Land. Zion knelt on one knee. His eyes shone with golden light. The path of atavism was to endure humiliation. No one could stop his Tao heart. Good. Good little brother, get up quickly. I will give you the Qilin blood essence. In the future, when I have meat to eat, I will not let you be a vegetarian. The parrot immediately abandoned Jian Chenshue and rushed to Zion. It gave the Qilin blood essence to Zion and took out a secret technique created by the human emperor when he was young, the dragon suppression seal. The golden light was dazzling and captivating. The corner of everyone's mouth twitched. This bitch bird was really generous. Zion bowed down. They did not know whether it was a blessing or a curse. Little brother, this divine bird did not humiliate you on purpose. I am testing your Tao heart. If you can't even endure humiliation, how can you prove your Tao? This divine bird has seen your performance. I can certainly predict that you will become the great emperor. You will be recorded in the history books forever. The parrot helped Zion up and said in a deep voice. Zion took the Qilin blood. He was so excited that his eyes were filled with tears. His qi and blood were boiling and roaring. The pressure was getting stronger and stronger. He could not wait to swallow the Qilin blood. However, his Tao heart was indeed terrifying. He suppressed his excitement and looked at the secret technique of the dragon suppression seal. His hands trembled. Looking at the serious expression of the parrot, the humiliation disappeared. Thank you, divine bird. Big brother. Zion took the dragon suppression seal and really submitted. This divine bird is destined to be the emperor of thousands of races. Whoever dares to oppose me is destined to have a bad end. The parrot laughed arrogantly. Long Qiong and the other experts' mouths twitched. Is that so? Are you betraying Brother Qinghan? Jian Chenshue was dissatisfied. These treasures were all discussed and given to Yi Qinghan. She did not expect the parrot to take the initiative and give them all to Zion. At the mention of Yi Qinghan, the parrot's arrogance was immediately extinguished. It trembled all over and hurriedly said, Mistress, don't think too much. I've always been loyal and devoted to my master. How could I possibly betray him? Who is your mistress? Emperor Yi was furious and asked coldly. The parrot flew back and ran behind Zetian. It did not dare to compete with Emperor Yi. Interesting. This training is the most interesting training I have ever seen. The phantom controlled the king of 100 battles. Its aura suppressed everyone. With the Xinyuan sword and the 9-dragon seal, the emperor's aura was vast and mighty. Everyone knelt down and shivered. Was this really the emperor's will? Why did it have its own thoughts? Fate is determined by the heavens. Those who are eliminated can only say that they did not have fate with me and brother Xinyuan. Now that we have seen your combat power clearly, I will leave some people with brother Xinyuan. The rest will leave. Sush. In the king of 100 battles area, the imperial might was vast and mighty. Golden light filled the sky, and the space changed. Other than Jian Chenxue, Gu Qingyu, and Long Qiong who were taken away, even Yang Zhan, Qitian Monkey King, Stan Wuxie, and Emperor Yi, who had terrifying bloodlines, were eliminated. Emperor Yi and Si Wuxie were of the emperor's bloodline. They had their own paths to walk. The emperor was not willing to interfere. Xia Qiue got the 13 moves of the Xinyuan sword, so it was not a loss. As for Lin Aoqiong, he had the divine sword Dao technique. He had to rely on himself in the future. Qitian Monkey King was indifferent. Even if he was eliminated, his Dao heart did not waver. Long Qiong only took advantage of the dragon's bloodline. The Azure Dragon Quasi-Emperor smiled. Long Qiong was taken away by the 9-dragon emperor's will. Her future was limitless. The people of the insane sect recovered. The parrot was also thrown out of the space. It flew back to Yi Qinghan's shoulder with a smug face and said flatteringly, "The mission is completed. Is master satisfied?" Yi Qinghan's lips curled up. He waved the universe ring in his hand and said lightly, "In the future, it will not be a problem for me to eat elixirs above level 6. The parrot was overjoyed. It could not wait to hug Yi Qinghan to show its sincerity. When everyone saw the parrot, they surrounded it. The parrot was so frightened that it trembled. It quickly shouted, "What do you want? I am not afraid of you. Bastard, you dare to show up? I will kill you. I am going to roast you." The heroes were furious. More and more people gathered. There were many who were cheated out of the space by the parrot, and they were all experts. There was no lack of emperors or quasi-emperors. The strongest were Qilin Tiger, Xian Zhutian, and more than 100 battle kings. Get out of my way. Zetian stepped forward with the purple sword in his hand. He glanced at the heroes. The Qilin bloodline was awakened, and he wanted to kill the kings of the heroes. Everyone swallowed a mouthful of saliva. They thought that Zetian was also here to settle scores with the parrot. They were gloating in their hearts. They opened a path for Zetian and Yi Qinghan to fight first. Yi Qinghan's expression was serious. He summoned his heavy berserk blade and looked coldly at Titan. He knew that Zetian was an extreme expert. He was definitely a top existence in the same realm. Little brother Zetian, come and protect big brother. These bastards are blind. They want to bully this divine bird. When the parrot saw Zetian, it immediately shouted. When everyone heard the parrot's shout, their hair stood on end. They all retreated more than 10 steps and looked at Zetian in shock. They thought that Zetian would be furious. They did not expect Zetian's attitude to change. He cupped his fists and said, "Big brother divine bird, don't worry. I will tear apart whoever dares to shout at you." Yi Qinghan staggered and almost fell to the ground. He looked at the parrot and Zetian in confusion. He did not understand what was going on. Some experts fell to the ground on the spot. They climbed up in a sorry state, and their faces were filled with disbelief. Chapter 289. The Qilin tiger was furious. Zetian had submitted to the parrot. Was the sky about to fall? Zetian and the Qilin tiger were of the same bloodline, but one was of the human race and the other was of the royal race. Zetian, you're of the Qilin bloodline. How could you submit to a lowly bird? Where's your conscience? The Qilin tiger stepped forward and looked at Zetian coldly. I control my Tao. You don't have the right to say whether I submit or not. You can talk to me again after I reach atavism. I'll kill you. Zetian retorted coldly. Qilin tiger, don't look down on the spirit-engulfing divine eagle. You should know better than us how you were kicked out. Ha! The people of the Kuang sect laughed and mocked him without giving him any face. The parrot raised its head arrogantly. With Yi Qinghan and Zetian by its side, it was not afraid of anyone. Little tiger, don't be arrogant. If you dare to be arrogant again, I'll teach you a lesson in the king-conferring battle. The parrot sneered and its eyes turned quickly. It looked at people like the Chitian Monkey King and thought, I'll make you kill each other sooner or later. The Qilin tiger clenched its fist and wanted to smash the parrot into pieces. However, Zetian and Yi Qinghan were beside it. It was difficult to deal with one of them. If the two of them attacked it together, it would definitely be in trouble. It had no choice but to retreat. Many of the experts who had been tricked by the parrot saw the Qilin tiger retreat and did not dare to look for trouble. They could only choose to leave quietly. Yi Qinghan looked at Zetian. This super-existence of the human race that was on the verge of complete atavism had actually been subdued by the parrot's threats. Yi Qinghan didn't want to look down on Zetian, so he smiled and cupped his fists. Brother Z, please don't bother with this parrot. If you think highly of me, then we can call each other brothers. Brother Yi, we can call each other brothers. However, I am indebted to the divine bird. If I can truly awaken the Qilin bloodline, it will be because of you. I will not forget your kindness. Let's call each other brothers. Zetian was neither servile nor overbearing. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. The parrot's ability to subdue people was not small. Since Zetian had already steeled his heart to recognize the parrot as his elder brother, he could not refuse. The parrot was moved to tears. It jumped onto Zetian's shoulder and said seriously, Good brother, I promise to make you a great emperor in the future. Come back to the insane sect with me. I will take you to the eternal battlefield to find treasures. Emperor Yi walked over, the enlightenment god lotus in hand, glaring at the parrot with displeasure. Inwardly, he was very unhappy that the parrot was being so nice to someone else. The parrot laughed awkwardly, not daring to say anything more. Yi Qinghan gathered the people of the insane sect and opened a huge sect in a mountain range outside the hunters' territory. He mobilized a large number of hunters to build a palace and joined forces with dozens of experts to set up a protective formation. With the human emperor's guardian sword as the eye of the formation, it would not be a problem to resist the attack of a quasi-emperor. A huge insane sect was officially established in the imperial domain. There was no superfluous announcement, just a silent rise. Yi Qinghan invited Yi Lingyu and Yi Jianma, the two young elites of the Tianji sect, to set up a 7th-grade spirit gathering formation in the mountain range. The spirit chi of heaven and earth rushed madly into the mountain range, turning it into a paradise. Yi Qinghan opened up a back mountain, flattened it, and developed it into a medicine garden. He planted a large number of 6th-grade and 7th-grade sacred medicine seeds, watered them with spirit liquid, and used the origin of water to move mountains and rivers, converging them into waterfalls and rivers. The mountain range stretched for hundreds of miles, becoming the back garden of the insane sect. The spirit chi was oppressive. The spirit chi formed a huge dragon above the insane sect and poured down like a spirit rain. All kinds of formations crisscrossed, and divine light filled the sky. In order to turn the insane sect into an impenetrable iron bucket, Yi Qinghan set up at least a dozen layers of formations in a radius of hundreds of miles. The large formations overlapped with the small ones, and the small ones overlapped with each other. Finally, Muyu Tianqin and Nangong Qingyue set up the Yin-Yang Great Formation, using the Great Tao of Yin and Yang to protect the core area of the insane sect. The corner of Yi Jinma's mouth twitched when he saw this. A large number of spirit crystals were used to pave the ground. Even if they were low-grade spirit crystals, it was extremely shocking. However, Yi Qinghan used middle-grade spirit crystals to pave the ground, creating thousands of paths that extended in all directions. Even the martial arts arena was paved with spirit crystals. The area was 1,000 meters wide, and with the activation of the formations, it was enough to withstand the powerful attacks of the Emperor-level experts. The weeds on the mountain range were cleared, and all of them were planted with 4th grade and above spirit herbs. As a result, the spirit chi in the insane sect was not inferior to that of an 8th grade clan. It was even better than that of a 7th grade sect's blessed land. The hunters mobilized by Yi Qinghan and the experts of the ancient massacre god coveted this place. They wished they could stay here to cultivate. Unfortunately, this place only accepted the disciples of the insane sect, and no one was allowed to stay here without permission. There were waterfalls on the surrounding cliffs, and the water was filled with spirit chi. Spirit mist filled the air, and it was like a fairyland. Even the Emperor-level experts were reluctant to leave this place. Brother Yi, I can't bear to leave this place. Heavenly Palace God was speechless. He looked around and his soul was mesmerized. This is nothing. When I earn enough spirit crystals, I will pave the road here with high-grade spirit crystals and put the supreme-grade spirit crystals in the core of the mountain range. I want to turn this place into a high-grade spirit crystal mine. Yi Qinghan said proudly. If he created a supreme-grade spirit crystal mine, the insane sect would definitely become a 9th-grade supreme sect in the future. It would be famous in the world forever. Lin Aoqiong, Huang Tianhe, and Chao Biang announced on the spot that they had joined the insane sect, which strengthened the sect's reputation. Heavenly Palace God smiled bitterly. If he did not have the support of the Heavenly Palace clan, he might not have been able to resist joining the insane sect. Zitian was also stunned by the friendly atmosphere of the insane sect. There was no intrigue here, and the relationship between the brothers and sisters was even better than that of royal siblings. There was no barrier between them. Emperor Yi and Si Wuxia, the two royal bloodlines, had always been kind to their junior brothers and taught them patiently. Yi Qinghan was a hands-off boss, but he was also the pillar of the sect's soul. With him around, the insane sect would never fall. No one would be able to break it apart. Yi Qinghan said in a low voice, Wuxia, spar with little Tian and cultivate his combat experience. The others are free to cultivate their secret techniques. I will cultivate in seclusion for a while and try to create more 6th grade and 7th grade divine pills before the battle. These are life-saving items. The insane sect's affairs will be left to your senior sisters, Emperor Yi and Jiao Chong. If you have any problems, you can ask your senior uncles. Wuxia took Di Long Tian to the martial arts arena. Everyone went to their own places and the outsiders left. Yi Qinghan found Mu Yu, Tianchen, and Nangong Qingyue. He found that the two of them had undergone tremendous changes. Their temperament was ethereal and their combat strength was extraordinary. Tunchen, Brother Gu is not here now. Shi Gu, Feng Wuxia, and the others are all in seclusion. Do me a favor and help me purchase some powerful 7th grade smithing materials. I want to forge some real divine weapons for the insane sect to face the titled king battle. As Yi Qinghan was speaking, a group of people arrived at the mountain gate. They represented the human race's superpowers and Dao realm's sacred grounds. There were also some experts from the myriad races. Most of them were divine martial realm experts. Yi Qinghan was surprised. He didn't even announce the establishment of the insane sect. What were these people doing here? He brought Mu Yu, Tianchen, and Nangong Qingyue out to welcome them. He found that everyone cupped their fists and congratulated him. They took out a large number of treasures and seemed to want to make friends with him. Yi Qinghan had too many monarch weapons in his hands. The human king's guardian sword, the divine martial imperial law, and an extreme Dao monarch weapon that he bragged about. Everyone thought that he had 3 monarch weapons. Even some of the royal races came to congratulate him. They were afraid of offending this rising insane sect. Yi Qinghan didn't hold back. At this time, the insane sect lacked resources. He couldn't keep asking the ancient massacre god for them. Sooner or later, the ancient massacre god would hate him. So, he took them all and welcomed them with a smile. He set up a banquet outside the insane sect to express his gratitude. However, since someone gave him face, there would naturally be people who came to cause trouble. However, they were all juniors. Yi Qinghan activated the array and kept them outside, allowing them to cause trouble. In the end, Si Wuxia brought Di Longtian out of the insane sect and beat them up. They almost lost their lives and all of them fled. Yi Qinghan didn't ask about it. The quarrels of the juniors were just right for Di Longtian to gain some experience and battle experience. After sending everyone off, Yi Qinghan returned to his specially built alchemy room. He took out the smelting divine furnace and used the 7th grade 6-taste true fire. With the help of the divine martial imperial laws alchemy chapter, he didn't need to spend too much effort on alchemy below the 8th grade. Yi Qinghan didn't want to waste a lot of time. A day of refining pills was equivalent to a day of cultivation. As he gradually became more proficient in refining pills, the prairie fire technique became more and more powerful. The purity and medicinal properties of the pills also became more and more powerful. The 6th grade Supreme Being Supreme Pellet emitted a fragrant aroma. As his soul grew stronger day by day, Yi Qinghan began to cultivate some of the soul divine arts in the divine martial imperial law. The one that interested him the most was a very special soul divine art, the soul slaying art. It could directly kill without leaving a trace. Using the soul slaying art, one could directly kill the opponent's soul and injure the enemy from 1,000 miles away. The soul-slaying art was divided into 3 realms. The first realm was the soul-refining realm. One would first cultivate one's soul to the point where one could control others. The second realm was the soul-slaying realm. In the second realm, one could directly use one's soul to kill the opponent. The third realm was the divine intent. In layman's terms, one's gaze and willpower could suppress the soul of an expert of the same level. Willpower was an extension of the soul. Willpower represented the soul, and the soul was the foundation of willpower. Once cultivated to the large success realm, one would be like a great emperor. One gaze could kill a 9th grade quasi-emperor. This was the difference in willpower. Yi Qinghan's soul and body were synchronized. His body was strong, his soul was strong, and his willpower was even more terrifying. To him, the first realm of the soul-slaying art was just a formality. What he really needed to cultivate was the second realm, the soul-slaying realm. Yi Qinghan was silent in his cultivation. He used his soul and willpower to control the flow of medicinal properties in the smelting divine furnace. The speed of his improvement was unparalleled. At the same time, many experts of the mad sect were also cultivating hard, especially those who had entered the endless space to train. Most of their souls were several levels higher than their physical bodies. For example, Shiji's soul was 7 levels higher. If they weren't synchronized, their physical bodies wouldn't be able to withstand the willpower of the soul. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.